Oh,
What? Scares me.
right next to me.
He minutes before he was a little Pete.
Welcome to the February 28th, 2024 business meeting of the Richmond Community School Board of Trustees. If you would please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could we please have the reading of our mission and vision statements?
Richmond Community Schools guide students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
Richmond Community Schools, a collaborative community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you. Next up, we have our celebrations. Dr. Wright.
President Ward and trustees, I ask that Mrs. Bridget Hazel Baker, our communications and marketing coordinator, join us for this evening's celebration honoring Mrs. Hazel Baker. Welcome.
We have two celebrations this evening. Our first will be one of our community partners, Richmond Art Museum's show in work. So, Mr. Dingler, can you come forward?
Dingworth.
Hello.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you. Well, I was going to report a little bit on things that are happening. So we're now the busiest part of our partnership, and I had passed out for you just a program booklet that goes into a little more detail because I know you have a long agenda. But some of the updates I'd like to share with you is that right now every high school student through the social studies department is coming through the Richmond Art Museum to see the current exhibition, which is the work by Latasha Stone Higgy. Here's the invitation. Latasha is the first Black woman to own her own skateboard company. She does digital artwork, and the students will not only hear about her career and see her art, but they have the opportunity to make their own skateboard design. And what we hope is that Latasha will pick in each grade a winner, and we hope to either gift them with one of her skateboards, or I would love to see her actually take their design and make an actual skateboard. We also have our Artist Mexico program ongoing this month through April. We will have visits to all RCS elementaries. We're still waiting on 2 to sign up, but all the other schools have signed up, and we're really pleased about that. Upcoming dates for your calendar: Fantascope High School Film Festival is the April 19th at 6 p.m. in the renovated McGuire Hall. The All-Wayne County High School Art Exhibition opens April 20th from 1 to 3. Certainly invite you to that. And I just want to say that none of this would be possible without the cooperation of the administration and the encouragement of this board. I just want to say that having an art museum in a high school is fantastic, but we need to be striving to take full advantage of the museum and all it has to offer for both students and adults. Financially, RAM has invested approximately $100,000 in McGuire Memorial Hall, including the mural, which if you've not seen the mural, I hope you'll come over and see it. We are planning a dedication. So Dr. Wright, I'll keep you informed of that. I'd like for you to be a part of that because I know how much you love history.
Yes, sir.
That mural was painted by Amy Reinhardt, who is a Richmond Community School graduate. And the mural depicts our cultural and industrial heritage of Richmond. And then lastly, I just want to say we value this partnership and look forward to more ways to collaborate as we move into our next 125th year. And then I don't know, did you want me to say something about the governor's award?
No, I want to, if you don't mind. If you kind of steal some of your own thunder.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you so much for coming over yesterday. That meant a lot. And the Richmond Art Museum, we had the largest crowd there. Thank you.
Yes, we did. Well as we should have, because we're the best. And we had one of the very best being honored. And so for those trustees that were with us in spirit yesterday, I know that Mrs. Stolzai and many others from the Richmond Art
Not there
Museum.
in spirit, I was there in fire.
Yes, Mr. Schultz and I were there in person, in the flesh, physically. And we were able to bear witness to Mr. Sean Deanworth receiving the state's highest art honor by our current sitting governor. Uh, and again, the award celebration, um, again, recognizing the outstanding achievement and contributions to arts and creativity here within the state of Indiana. The Office of the Governor and the Ethics Commission presented Mr. Dingworth with the Governor's Arts Award, which again, as I referenced, is the highest honor the state gives in the arts. And the honors, as well as the honorees that were celebrated, were tremendous. However, again, I have bias. I think that your video clip, along with your remarks and your mother's presence, made it even that much more memorable and cherishable. So we appreciate all that you have continued to do for the Richmond Art Museum. I think you have been around since
25 years.
25 years.
Yeah.
And under your leadership and with your guidance, the museum just continues to grow and expand. I know that your partner in crime, Mr. Pro, along with so many others, have done a tremendous job to expose our students in our community to fine arts that otherwise they would not have. And so, board again, Mr. Deanworth continues to exemplify what it is that we all try and model and expect of our faculty, staff, students, and stakeholders. And we thank you for it, sir.
My last remark will be is while the governor's handed me the award, he was so impressed with the nomination and what people had said about Richmond. And of course, we talked heavily about this partnership, which is very unique. And he said, I have got to get to Richmond, Indiana and see this place. So we're going to hopefully make that happen, and we'll make Richmond Community Schools part of that, because I would love for him to see not just RAM, but RSO, the Civic Hall, and Tiernan, and see what you guys do.
And the last time Governor Holcomb was in the city, he reminded us all that he is a Red Devil himself, a white Red Devil, and I reminded him that we're the true Red Devils here in Richmond.
That's right.
And so no, he is, I think, as you referenced, excited to get that.
And just to point out, I've been on the RAM board for 17 years, and every year, multiple times throughout the year, Sean consistently talks about the partnership and just the uniqueness of it. So it truly is at the forefront of his mind, as well as just when he's introducing people to what we do at RAM. He's talking about what we do at RCS with RAM. So it just really is an awesome partnership. So
Yes.
Other questions, comments? Boards? Yeah. Mr. Dingworth, again, congratulations, sir. We appreciate
Thank you
all
so much. I appreciate it. And again, I value this partnership, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mrs. Hazel Baker, I think our next honorees are.
So we have some very, I'd like to spell different things, but we have our spelling bee champions here in the house. So very exciting to have them. So if I could have the 3 first, second, and third place winners come up. That's Freya Robinson, Olivia Dilworth, and Dexter Singh. Come on up, please.
Can they come before, or actually, yes, can they come before the, right in front of the podium?
Yeah, someone up in here.
Stand right up here.
Right, Olivia and Dexter, is that correct? Yes.
Now they're gonna ask you some questions. You guys can introduce yourselves or.
So let's do that if you don't mind. We said first, second, and third. First was Brea. And so where is Brea? Is Brea? Is Brea? Brea, let us know what school do you currently attend?
Fairview.
Fairview Elementary
Yes.
School, and what grade level? Third grade, Fairview. And who is your current teacher?
Miss Washington.
Miss Washington there at Fairview. All righty. And next up is Miss Olivia, is that correct? Olivia, what grade?
Third.
Third, at which school?
Hibbert.
At Hibbert. Okay. And Mr. Dexter, what grade level, sir?
I'm fourth.
Fourth grade. And which school?
Hibbert.
Hibbert. Board questions, comments?
who did you guys bring with you this evening? You recognize anybody in the audience? Someone who gave you a ride? I don't know.
Some teachers. I see some teachers.
Any teachers here?
Parents, teachers.
Bring. You bring.
My stepmom, my dad, and my principal.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And Olivia, who did you bring?
Who brought you?
Did you drive yourself?
I think I can see the Hibbert principal and I see two Hibbert teachers
Yes.
there. Yes.
Two educators in the back and
Yes.
mother and father. Oh yeah.
Very
And Mr. Dexter, who accompanied you here? Who you with today?
My dad.
Your father's here with you. Great, great. Well, parents definitely appreciate your committed efforts in seeing your superstar students be at the forefront.
I'm sure that you're getting a picture of them, but could the parents please stand as well as the teachers? You know, I know that, what was your winning word? Do you remember?
It was termite and in golf.
In golf? Okay. And the reason, again, always including the parents, because this doesn't happen unless they have their support. And I hope you get pictures of them as well. I know that, well, I'm not going to go into history of my spelling championship, but you know, there's nothing like having a parent who's very supportive in every aspect of their day. And they're so adorable. But again, this doesn't happen unless the parents are very much involved with this. So thank you. They weren't going to mention you, but it's worth it.
So share with us, what were some of the things that you all did to prepare to be successful and be winners?
We had come back home and practice our words almost
Almost every day. Okay. What did it mean, Olivia, if you don't mind? I know it's very intimidating at times being in front of all these folks, especially like myself with a lot of hair. But share with me. Got a smile and shit out there.
He smiled.
Olivia, share with me. How did you feel when you went back into your classroom the next day, knowing that you had been successful in the spelling bee?
I don't know.
Okay. Were your friends excited for you, I assume? No?
Not really.
That's okay. Sometimes competition brings out the worst in people. Dexter, what were some of the things that you did to prepare, sir?
Every night, me and my mom, she would quiz me on the words. She would ask me how to spell them, and then if I got them wrong, she would correct me on them. And we would do that a lot.
That's what it's all about. Practice makes perfect, as we know. Some other questions?
I was just gonna say that it takes a lot of work studying with you guys, but also takes a lot of courage to get out on that big stage with the light shining on you, come out to the microphone. So you guys did a great job doing that as well.
Congratulations to all three of you.
Keep up the great work.
You guys can have your seat.
All right, next on the agenda is our highlights and happenings.
President Walton, trustees, come before you all this evening to share that earlier this morning, I was able to accompany Richmond High School students in the 9th through 12th grade, along with one of our very esteemed administrator, Josh Amix. We traveled to Centerville Elementary School to take part in a countywide student panel with students from Nettle Creek Schools, which is Hagerstown, Western Wayne Schools, Lincoln, Centerville, and Northeastern Schools. This is something that my counterparts, fellow superintendents around the county, we have been working with the Fort Wayne County, the Wayne County Chamber Association, as well as the Wayne County Foundation to try and share with our current high school students the importance of them remaining here in Richmond and or returning once they go off to higher education or career service, but pointing back into Wayne County, pointing back into Richmond, and seeing our students in that form, interacting, engaging, breaking down barriers, and most importantly, recognizing that they all are from Wayne County and that they all have the same pride in this county and the same emphasis of wanting to make it better. And to hear that they, some of the things that would entice them to stay and or return to Richmond would be if we regained and reestablished a target. They want top golf. They want 5 guys. They had not many of them had not been privy to the fact that we're getting the Chick-fil-A, but they jump for joy there. They want Scene 75. They would love to have an arcade back, some boutiques, things that we all had here in this Rose City growing up. And again, it just was a truly remarkable experience. And the one thing, one caveat, the takeaway was that they wanted to do it more. They wanted to be in each other's presence more often. And I think that just speaks volumes to what it is that we have in front of us in the county. As far as the happening, I'm not going to steal Mr. Scout's thunder, but I do want to acknowledge the work of Mrs. Karen Scout, her facilities and operations department, Mrs. Bolzer, Mrs. Marker, Mr. Bauer, Mr. Baker, our central office team leaders around the corporation for the acquisition, along with Attorney Crooks, the acquisition of McBride, which became official yesterday. But I know that Mrs. Scout, in particular, took this monumental task by the horns and carried it from the start through to the end. And for what many folks were not able to see, the behind the scenes efforts that she and her team put in motion to bring it to fruition, it was rather remarkable to see. And so I'm not, again, going to steal her thunder, but I simply wanted to thank her because as far as a happening, that is a major happening. I also want to commend and appreciate and exercise my and our appreciation and gratitude for you all as a fearless board. And I think that oftentimes we don't realize what it is that has been accomplished here late and within the last several years. You all have brought forth action-based leadership that I think is going to allow our corporation to continue to grow, flourish, and most importantly, keep students at the center of what it is that we're doing. So I appreciate you all because it was a proposal and a recommendation. And you all heard it, considered it, approved it, and now it's here. So I thank you all. Mr. Fowler, Chief of Secondary Education. I'd like to have you, sir.
Do you want to have?
Actually, you know what? Yes, let's transition to Mrs. Margaret, who will be carrying the elementary highlight happenings along with her own exceptional education.
First happening for elementary is this week has been filled with data meetings in most elementary buildings. Our principals continue to be more comfortable and effective in discussing data with their teachers. First highlight, Mr. Baker is working towards getting all 6 elementary buildings licensed through Path to Quality preschool program. This is the first step in getting CCDF funding for all 6 elementary preschool programs. And the next is we held the Wayne County Safety Commission meeting on Tuesday. This meeting was very well attended and also had a special guest. Ryan Stewart, the head of school safety for the IDOE, attended and presented at their safety meeting.
And with regard to exceptional education,
Absolutely.
we'll stay with you.
So currently we have high ability testing going on around the district. We've completed the COGAP for grades 2 and 5, and the kindergarten screener is being administered right now through the end of February. This is the first year that we've moved to online testing for all grade levels, which has created a much smoother testing environment for both our students and our staff. And even our kindergarten students are doing a great job of navigating the online platform. Our high ability consultants, grades K through 8, will be participating in high ability boot camp. It's the first day of that boot camp, and they'll return next Wednesday for day 2. They're going to be trained on the RCS identification model and complete identification for our students before spring break. And then 2
questions real quick. As far as the COGAT testing for public members of the public who have kiddos that are in grades like 3 or 4 who hadn't had the opportunity to be tested in one of those and feel like, well, maybe this is something that my kid needs to be identified as, how would they go about doing that?
Sure, they could reach out to Cassie Laudermilk, the principal at Hibbard, and she will get them started on all the paperwork and processes to get that process started.
Okay, great.
Thanks. You're welcome. And I have two highlights. So today was a great day of learning for our first steps of phase 2 of TBRI training. So we spent the day at Mount Vernon for TBRI training for administrators. And so some of our elementary principals, Mrs. Hobbs and Mr. Hensley were able to attend, and it was a great day of learning alongside of them. And then my second highlight is our speech language pathologist. They have been traveling around the district to conduct our mandatory hearing screenings for our 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th grade students. And as you know, SLPs play a crucial role in identifying potential hearing problems early on, which allows for timely intervention and support to minimize the impact on individuals' communication skills and overall development. So I wanted to give them a shout out.
Questions?
I had a question that I don't know if you can answer. On the preschool issue, the pastoral, does that mean that's the only type of preschool we offer? Like, I guess, play-based preschool. Like if we wanted to have a play, I'm guessing that would not meet the PATH quality, but that might be something parents would prefer. Do we still possibly have that option in the future, or?
I'm going to defer that to Mr. Baker and have him follow up with.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know if going down this road, to your point, Mary, is just the one type of preschool.
Okay. I mean, I just would hope we would have the option. I think it's fine, but I think play-based preschool has a lot of pros, and many people prefer that. So it'd be nice to have multiple options. I think path quality also has its strengths as well. So just more options are good. Thank you.
Thanks, Webb. Next up, Senator Education, Mr. Mark Fowler.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Wright. Trustees, the highlight that I'm going to share, I think everyone of our trustees was in attendance at the National Honor Society ceremony, with the exception of Mr. Zaleski. I apologize. But that was a wonderful night. The current National Honor Society students welcomed the new members. That was just a really neat experience to see some of the current students welcoming. I think it was 62 new members that were welcomed. So it was really, really neat. And it was a great time to celebrate the academic achievement of the new members. Two happenings. We had our secondary music department recruitment. And so if you don't know, we invite students who test, and Dennis and Hibbard, they go and play, and there's choir, and there's band, and there's orchestra. And we use that as a recruitment tool to get students interested in the arts, music specifically. And that was a great time. The kids had a great time. There are varying levels of music that's performed, but all the kids are very, very appreciative of the opportunity to go. And then the test students and our younger kids get the opportunity to see that. So it's a big part of our recruitment. And then lastly, Dennis had a PTO Valentine's Day dance, and over 200 students attended that, which was awesome. We had over 15, I believe, staff and administrators who also volunteered to supervise. And so that was super exciting. It was actually the Friday where we got a ton of snow. And so it was scheduled from 3:45 to 5:30, and they had to cut it at 5 because of the snow. But we do have cameras, and we were able to see that they were having a great time. And so it was really, really a good Leland for them.
Where was that located this year?
The Dennis?
Yeah.
At Dennis.
Yeah, Dennis. Okay.
Yep.
I know they had one at the Leland last year.
Yeah, they do that in the
in the spring. Are they going to do that again?
I believe so.
Okay, awesome.
Ms. Cooper informed me I am responsible for one dance supervision, and she said it's going to be. So I will be there. Yeah, that's how I found out.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Any questions? Ready? Moving right along. Mrs. Bolzer, highlighting happenings, man. The Chief of HR and Finance.
So the highlight I wanted to share was the HR team visited Test Intermediate on Friday, February 16th. We have been to every school with the exception of Crestdale, Dennis, and the high school. It's just as a small token of our appreciation that we have for our staff. We started a mobile coffee and hot chocolate cart that we're taking around to each school and actually taking it around throughout the building. Our central office team is trying to do that for them. But we're also excited to soon schedule our stops at Crestdale, Dennis, and the high school. I also wanted to do a shout out to Ray Wolpe, Rusty Hensley, and Rod Maddox. The HR team participated in their mock interviews for the career education students at the high school last week, and that's always a successful event, and kudos to them on continuing to do great things for our students. Happenings. I wanted to report that the February membership counts were certified. RCS experienced a decrease in the overall numbers of students from 4,245 in the fall to 4,227. That's an overall decrease of 18 students. The majority were from the high school as a result of early graduation. The decrease of 18 is the net difference. We did experience growth in some buildings throughout the district. I wanted to highlight those just real quick. Charles saw the largest increase of just shy of 4%. Dennis saw just shy of 3% increase in students. And Star and Test also saw slight increases as well. For the most part, they did stay stable. When there's a decrease, it's less than a fraction of a percentage, but the majority were at the high school for early graduation. I did also want to make sure that you knew that this would result in an approximate decrease of Indiana State Basic Grant support of $71,648 for January through June. The decrease will be with the April payment from the state, while a decrease from the fall count date. This is the smallest mid-year decrease in several years. Last year, we lost 52 students, and the year before that was 73. Furthermore, the state predicted our ADM for February count to be 4,124. So we're well above that, and that was based off of just historical trend data. And the budget was built anticipating the February count to be 4,203. So still above those projections. The other thing I also wanted to touch on is the months of December and January into February are very high pressure, high demanding deadlines for both the HR and the business department. We also have a very large, very detailed report. It's the Civil Rights Data Collection Report that is also gathered throughout that time. It takes several months in order to complete that. This year, we took a different approach on that because it's quite overwhelming because it spans over so many of the different departments and the data that it's collecting. So we would sit in here numerous times, circled around this table. Almost every department had somebody in attendance and represented. And we are happy that we were early in that submission and we chunked that off and worked together as a collaborative team on that. I know it was a lot less stressful for the person that is really over that because we took it on together. And I will also say that the federal government had to extend that deadline because there were so many that were late in the filing. The system crashed because of it. And it was one of those nice things that we sat here and said, ours is done. So I wanted to give actually a huge shout out to the team for that collaborative nature, but also really Debbie Hampton. She stepped into that and really took the bull by the horns. And I wanted to celebrate Debbie Hampton.
Thank you, Mrs. Bolzer. Next up will be our chief of.
I thought last year the state was looking at correcting that early graduation problem. Have you, Pete, or have you seen anything, or did that even come up this year?
I haven't seen it hit in our highlights yet.
Okay.
It definitely needs to be.
Maybe they may wait for a long session, I guess, maybe.
And a peak highlight, looking forward to next month's highlight, I guess, would be, we did just get our certification for our special education in this February. I'm sure Mrs. Markwood can attest to this. We have an increase because of the increase in students with specialized needs. So we'll have increased funding for that, but there's additional increased services that I know our staff is feeling. It's feeling. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mrs. Bolzer. Next up will be our Chief of Operations, Mr. Karen Scott. Mrs. Scott, what was yours with you?
Good evening. As we heard earlier, we have a super highlight in the operations department. We did Fire McBride Stadium and John Cate Field, located at the stadium, as well as the adjacent um, 3 other baseball and softball fields. So it is a wonderful partnership that we have had with the city of Richmond and the Parks Department, and we are so thankful for not only the work and the love that they've put into that facility, but also with the care that they have taken in this transition to make sure that everything has gone as smoothly and as seamlessly as possible. Everything at the end happens really quickly. And so it was just a complete team approach to all of it. And so I can't say thank you enough to our mayor, to our Parks Department superintendent who brought their team and worked with our team, and everything has been really great. Our P&L has been down doing some work there for their side of things. And so everybody, it really has been a true joint effort. And so it has gone very smoothly these last couple of days. But there has been a ton of work between both of our groups, just trying to make sure everything gets done and all of those pieces get placed appropriately and together. So just a huge shout out to them. A big thank you to Mr. Bolzer, who has also been working very diligently in planning and working with me to make sure that we are ready. The thing about baseball and softball seasons is they start much earlier than the weather cooperates with. And so we are already looking ahead to a season in only about 3 weeks. So we will be working extremely quickly and extremely hard to ready those to make sure that our students have the best they can have for a great season. So that he has done a tremendous job in meeting me down there at the drop of a hat, or vice versa, so that we can just get thinking and start working on what we need to make that work for our teams. I also want to give a big shout out to Mr. Hazelbaker, Mr. Nash, and Ms. Corwin, as well as Mr. Matthews in the technology department, because what we also have to think about is we need network down there. We might need a telephone. We need some security things. And so they have done a tremendous job. They were out today with maintenance crew. It was really cold today, and everyone was out doing what they can to run fiber and to run wiring and to get things set up, as well as, making sure that the locks get changed so the city can have their locks back. So I can't say enough. It is cold, and they are doing a tremendous job out there, just in such a short amount of time. So just want to say thank you to them. So a couple of happenings.
Actually, before you move on,
yeah,
if you don't mind, Mrs. Scout, again, kudos, tremendous job. Our board, if they're interested in taking a tour.
Yes, absolutely. So Friday afternoon, if I can send out kind of a couple of options for if you'd like to come and take a tour. We should be done having everything changed over. I think that will be a little easier to get in everywhere we need to get in and do what we need to do. So I want to invite you Friday afternoon, and we'll take a tour. So I'll send an email with a couple of times, and we'll get that mailed out, and we'll make sure everybody can see what we've got and take a look at what's there.
And if Friday doesn't work, then sometime next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm available. Exactly. Yeah. If it doesn't work, I will make time. It is not a problem. So absolutely.
Turn across.
Well, in case you can't tell, there's not much enthusiasm here in this office for this position. I might like to selfishly suggest that we get somebody with a nice phone that has high pics to get a nice before, if you will, of the condition of what we're taking over. Not that it's bad. I just think that the high hopes that we have, I think, will translate in 3 or 4 years to something that's going to be very remarkable when you look back and compare.
Yep. I absolutely agree. So we will work on that for sure. We have a couple of options for a couple of different things that we can do.
John's got a nice camera.
He does. He does. Yeah. So, but I think that is definitely something nice, and then we can reflect back on all that has been done. The other thing that we've been working on, and we've actually been working on this since it's not only inception but implementation, follow up, everything. It is a daily, if not hourly, work right now. to continue to work on our parent patrol application. There have been some hiccups. We knew there would be going in. There are a lot of students that ride the bus. There's a lot of data that we have to keep integrity in. There's a lot of moving parts, and it's all online based. So we have been working, and I can't stress enough, hourly to make updates, make sure that we're making forward progress. I really want to thank parents for their patience, because it might frustrate them, but it frustrates us about tenfold. And so we are working on that. I actually had a conference call along with the transportation department with the president of the company today, because it has meant that much to her to get this completely going and right. We are not their only school. They have a lot of schools that use this, but the beginning is always hard. And so as we work through this, I just am so appreciative of the continued patience. We do see some light at the end of the tunnel. It is just going to take us a little bit to get there. They continue to write software updates that then we'll push out. And they want to make sure they work first. So we have to make sure that is working. So that is coming. We are continuing to work, and hopefully that will be very soon, that we will be back in a really good spot with that. It does, when it is really good, it is really, really good. It's just we have to get there for every route, every day, and every parent. So just want to say thank you for patience on that. It is something that we are working on continuously, and we will continue to do so until it is perfected. So that's where we're at on that. So that's what's been happening in operations.
I have a quick question. Have they alluded to, is it just an issue with us in trying to get our data, or are they having network issues?
It's not, every school is different. And so it isn't necessarily a data per se per school. It is an operational. They have to write software that melds with your data system. And so sometimes it's really easy, and sometimes it just takes tweaks. We're in the tweak mode. Because of that, it's just a little finicky in what it's taking and what it's not. So they want to make sure it will take it all. And they have been working, and we've been testing updates nearly every day in some fashion. I want to thank Alex, Hazel Baker, as well as Sasha Amen, because they have really, I mean, they are spending a lot of testing. And it's not maybe for Alex, he's so fast at it. Like, he's done before I've even been able to figure out what they're talking about half the time, because he's so he just understands it. But they are, I mean, it is on their priority list. They are in it every day. They are, sending communications back and forth. So we are getting there. It's just, it's kind of like any conversion to a new platform. Mm-hmm. It's just the new beginnings. And we are, we are yeah. And I mean, being in the business office, we went from a platform that we had to a platform that was the same company, and you still had a year's worth of hiccups because it's just conversion. So that's what we're seeing. It's not that anything is wrong necessarily. It's not being quite right yet. Okay. So yeah, we'll get there. It's just, and if for some reason we don't, I'm working on alternate plans, but I just don't want to give up yet because we're getting close. Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Scott. Mm-hmm. Questions? Ms. Moore.
All right, next on the agenda is our public hearing for 2024 finances. At this time, we suspend the regular business meeting of the Board of School Trustees and declare the public open on the proposed construction project. If you're interested in speaking at the hearing, please make sure you sign the sign-in sheet in the back of the room, which should include your name and address. After a presentation by administration and its advisors, there will be an opportunity for the public to make comments about the project. At the hearing, we will ask that each person limit their comments to 5 minutes, and the topic be limited to under consideration. The notice of this preliminary determination hearing was published as legally required. At this time, I'll ask Dr. Wright or Mr. Cross explain the purpose of this hearing.
And of course, I don't want to steal your time, sir.
Beg your pardon?
If you could explain the purpose of the hearing, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Whenever we are proposing to issue debt of this nature, which is uh, different than what we've done most recently in the past, it's required that we give the public an opportunity to hear what the project's about, to know the expected cost of the project, and then obviously we're talking projects plural in this instance, as well as just have examples of the tax rate impact that it's projected to have at various levels of property ownership. So we have to do that on two occasions. There's materials that will be presented that will address these issues by those that we've retained to assist us. And there is other additional data that is available if someone wants to get a little bit farther into the weeds, if you will, than what will be presented. It's been vetted quite thoroughly. Jamie and her team have done a great job of not just getting it together, but making sure that it's been fine-tuned. That being said, there may be a glitch or two somewhere, but I'm not. But the reason we have two is to allow people to hear it once and then twice, look at the documentation. So we'll have a second hearing March 13th. And at that time, barring any change in the board's direction from the comments that it might hear between tonight and then, there would be some action that would be taken. Tonight, the only thing you're doing is listening attentively to what is presented, as well as what public comments and concerns might be, so that those can be given their due weight, and to the extent that we deem appropriate, perhaps impact what we do at the next meeting.
All right, we'll now hear from Superintendent Wright, our CFO, Jimmy Bolson, our Chief Operations Officer, Karen Scout, about the process to determine and communicating the project to the community and the need for the projects.
Thank you, President Ward, Mrs. Bolton, Mrs. Scout, floor is yours, ladies.
Well, I just thought I would start with a brief timeline because I think some of this stuff you may have heard several times now because it has been quite the process, and we have done it in an open meeting. And so discussions began around August of the concept of 2023 as we began putting the budget together for this fiscal year, for this calendar year for 2024. So during our budget hearing on September 27th of 2023, we presented as an additional tool as we also went into collective bargaining. So we kind of married some of that, right? Because we knew that we wanted to try to free up some educational money and also complete and completion some of these projects that we've tried to utilize some effort funds for and other funds that we had available, but we had some lingering needs that were becoming more costly because we weren't able to complete them. So this was further discussed at the initial budget hearing and then again on the budget adoption hearing on October 18th. As we began to get some of the guidance on the amount that we felt comfortable with, we also did additional studies as far as a comprehensive study on what it would do or what it wouldn't do in some regard to property taxes and what it would look like for our levy in combination with some of the other things that we're doing. So we also discussed it further on November 20th. As far as starting to look at what those actual projects look like, and then we took some of that input that we had began to receive. And on December 13th, we started to solidify those projects, the amounts, and then the time frame a little bit more. And we further did that again in a special meeting on January 10th to fine tune some of those projects and what our total options were, as well as giving us that direction for the not to exceed amount. So that's what has led us here, which is just a preliminary determination hearing. We will go into more detail as far as how it correlates to the academic needs, the overall project, and the timeline of the project, as well as the financing sources. So.
Thank you, Mrs. Bolton, Mrs. Scott.
Okay, so we will review the projects. We have talked about all of these items in prior meetings, but we will review them for our public, and then we'll offer any time for questions that the public may have or any any other commentary that they may desire to offer. So, would you like me to run this, or would you like to run this?
There's a clicker available if you'd like to.
I'll do a clicker. I did that up here. Okay. We're getting fancy now. Maybe. Yep. Ah, look at that. Did you do that, or did I? Okay. The rationale that we have been using for the projects as we've looked at what we want to offer with this issuance is first and foremost to improve or enhance the educational areas or environments. That is always at the forefront of what we do on the facility side of things. And so that is first and foremost in all of the things that we are considering as we look at what needs to be done around the district. The other thing that we take into consideration is that we need to catch up some deferred maintenance as well as look ahead to proactive maintenance for the future. It is something that as I have transitioned into this role, I have seen that we really need to get back to proactive and preventative maintenance anywhere that we can. And so looking at these projects will help with that in quite a few of our buildings. The other thing that we're looking at is to shift expenses from operations to debt service. And this is not saying that there will be no maintenance or facility costs in funding in the routine budget of the corporation. It is simply that we are shifting some of those project-based costs and then leaving the routine in those areas, as well as staffing and items such as that. Okay, the educational impact that this will provide is that in a number of the buildings that will be touched, it will improve comfort levels in learning environments. I will say on a very frequent basis, I hear it's hot or it's cold in classrooms. And so knowing that this could improve that in those buildings where we will do work is really good. It will also provide for better maintenance services to be provided, because as I am looking at things, my goal is to look at best practice, similar systems throughout our district to provide our staff with more appropriate ways that they can service these units. And so we spend a lot of time on HVAC and on service in our district. And it is something that we can do better as we look ahead and as we plan for specifications out on bids. The next thing is providing students with inviting, fun, outdoor learning environments that also provide neighborhood play areas. Our playgrounds are used nearly every day in nearly every neighborhood. So it's not just about our schools and recess and those outdoor activities that teachers utilize our playgrounds for, but also knowing that we're a positive impact to our neighborhoods is a really good thing that we can provide. So that is also a positive way to look at impacting. And Mr. Weber said it with the power of play. It's a big thing to be outside, to look at that. You're learning socially, you're learning motor skills, you're learning fine motor skills. It's just a really great thing that we can offer to our students. The other thing is to improve general aesthetics district-wide. Not only do we want inviting fun environments outside, we would like fun inviting environments inside. So anything that we can do to improve that as we move forward is something that we want to look at. And then lastly, routine maintenance, timely replacements, and updated facilities that we need for extracurricular activities. Our facilities are not new. Most of them are at about a 50-year-old or older mark. And so that our extracurricular offerings are also a part of those facilities, and so those need routine maintenance. They need updates. We have a really engaged student population, which is so wonderful, and so we want to make sure that those facilities are maintained in a way that provide them with the opportunities to do what they need in those extracurricular events that they participate in. Okay, so some general statistics about the issuance itself, and Mrs. Bolser has already kind of covered some of these, but I wanted to kind of break it down from the project side. So the total issuance is expected to be around $20 million, not really to exceed that. The soft costs projected are between 7 and 10% of that amount. That is very routine for a debt issuance. Project funding is estimated at about 18.6 million. The funds that aren't needed for soft costs would be reallocated out to projects. That is a very normal thing that we do. The other piece to that is project costs that come in lower per project than we expect would be reallocated out to projects within these parameters that are at a higher, they may come in higher in their bids, or they may have unexpected changes in that plan that increase those costs. That is a natural part of construction and maintenance, and so we want to make sure that we are monitoring that and taking that into consideration early on. Okay, so I've broken down the project plan by 4 major categories. You have already seen the breakdown based on the bonding requirements, but these are based on projects. So how do I look at the plan for what we need and how we're going to make it happen? So basically 4 categories. We have infrastructure, we have mechanicals, we have classrooms, and we have athletics. So we're going to look at each of those areas separately and what's to come. First is infrastructure, and you will notice there is a lot on this slide. So infrastructure primarily is going to be looking at parking lots, bus lanes, asphalt repair, and replacement throughout the district. You will notice that we need a lot of work in our parking lots. It's been a while since we have been able to do major work in that way. While we're doing that, we may need to look at bus lane options. We might need to look at reconfiguration while it's being redone. So I want to provide those options out to our public should that need to be done, so that you're aware we are looking at that while we plan these projects. Fencing. We have a lot of fencing district-wide. We have backstops to on some of our like middle school fields that just need some love. They are used readily as the weather warms, and it is a wonderful thing that our community and our kids get out and play. So we want to make sure that we maintain those well. We have fences that we either need to replace or stretch and paint. So we'll be doing that and looking at those most needed areas throughout the district. Playgrounds, and I've already been working with the company that does our playgrounds. So Sinclair Recreation has been doing our playgrounds. They offer matching grants. It's a really great way to maximize funding for the playground areas in our buildings. As they came out, some of the playgrounds are in really good condition, but we might want to update some pieces. So maybe it won't be a whole renovation, but it'll be a little small update. Maybe it'll be painting with an update of a few extra pieces that make them modern and make them kind of more current to what's happening now. So we would primarily look at Baxter, Star, and Vale for that. It has been quite a while since they have had updates on their playgrounds. So, and then roofing and facade. So those will be at Richmond High School, Test Intermediate, and Fairview Elementary. So those are roofs at Richmond High School and Test that we need very quickly. And then at Fairview will be mostly facade work, but if funds allow, we'll also be working on the roof. And then some roof repairs will occur through the operations fund for Fairview as well. All right, moving on to mechanical. We have heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. I try really hard not to use acronyms unless I have to. So HVAC is heating, ventilation, air conditioning. So looking at Dennis and Baxter, We want to complete the project that is currently underway at Dennis through ESSER funding. At the end of this project, there will be some loops that must be closed in order for it to operate the best that it can. And so, knowing that that is a priority, that is on this project list and will be handled as quickly as possible once we know that the board decides this is the way we will go moving forward. Baxter is also a renovation of that system. It is at near end of life. We have a really great HVAC technician that has been working diligently to make sure that our buildings continue to operate. However, we know that we need to have this on the list and make it happen soon. So this is part of the proactive getting ahead before it becomes really difficult. So restroom updates. District-wide, but primarily RHS. We made some restrooms at RHS recently. We want to continue that trend. It's really positive for them, and we'd like to continue this throughout the district. But restrooms are never a super cheap thing to fix, and so it's something that as we look, we'll do one at RHS, and then we'll see what funds allow, and possibly be able to do more than that. The public address systems, this will be district-wide. We do need to update PA systems throughout the corporation. We have already begun actually at the high school. It was in the works last year, and so they are nearing the end of that transition, and it has already made a substantial difference. So we know that it will make a difference for all the rest of the schools if we continue that progress. So it's something that we felt was super important to put in this this debt issuance. And then, sorry, I have grants on the brain with playgrounds. And then security cameras, just providing some updates on our cameras and our system that way. Putting some extra cameras, knowing that that is always something that we routinely need to do was important as we look at continued increase of security and safety for our students. The public address systems also provide that, as they are much different than we currently have. And it provides a lot of interactive opportunity between classrooms and the office. And it is a really nice change to what we are currently seeing in our little bit older systems. Classroom and aesthetics, generally flooring, paint, if funds allow, we'll be doing a little bit of that. Lockers at the high school for all 3 floors. This is super important as we kind of finish up all of those halls and the floors. The thing that's next is the lockers. They are very, very old and they have held up so well, but we would like to make sure that we can maybe update those sometime very soon, and transition that into an update that'll last for a really long time. The other thing that we'd like to look at is updating our applied skills areas at the high school and the middle schools. These are some things that would really make those spaces more user-friendly, super inviting, more convenient for our teachers and our staff. And they work really, really hard to make sure that our students get the services that they need. And there are things we can do on the facility side to make their jobs easier. So some of that will be taking place with this bond as well. And we started that a little bit at the high school this winter with some new flooring, and it has made a big difference in getting some feedback from the teacher. So we just want to continue that and make sure we can do a little bit more there. All right, and then the athletic portion of the facilities is that we're going to relay the turf on the RHS Leibolt field. It is at end of life. We have done an amazing job of maintaining that facility and stretching that life as long as we can. I can't say enough about the high school custodial team. The work that they do is second to none. And it's for that reason that field has lasted as long as it has. We have gotten 2 years longer than life out of it, and that is really exceptional. We want to update the RHS baseball and softball fields and grounds. That's something that we just talked about. So continuing that work. We want to resurface possibly the track or explore adding a lane. It does need some work. It was done when the turf was done. And so it's time to take a look at that as well. And then also look at rebuilding the tennis courts at RHS. That has provided us with some opportunities and challenges along its path that we want to look at, maybe making that better. It is time to resurface. So this is a natural time in which we would look at those anyway. And providing these funds to do that will provide us with the ability to make more happen than we otherwise would have been able to with operations funds alone. So those are the primary areas for athletics right now as we look ahead to this bond. All right, so just wanted to talk a little bit about the expected timelines that from the facility side of this. So throughout the rest of the spring, Mrs. Bolzer and her team will be working on the issuance and the closing and all those things that have to happen with you as the board to finalize all of that stuff that has to occur legally and just statutorily. But from the construction side of things, there are a couple of things that we just want to remember. The market for construction is extremely saturated right now. ESSER funds and funds that have been provided to governmental entities, even more than schools, have really flooded that market with work. So the ability for us to find vendors that can make things happen immediately or right away is very limited. I just want everyone to be aware of that because it will stretch our timelines a little bit more than maybe what would happen if that wasn't in play. The other thing is that we are still seeing extreme delays in equipment for HVAC products or products that have a lot of computerization that then goes into work with more systematic parts and pieces, controls. It is taking a long time. So they are more than 12 months, sometimes 14 and 16 or more months out. So I just want to be very realistic as we look at these projects and know that for the most part, things may not really start moving until 2025 and then hopefully getting finished in 26 if everything would come in just right. It's just important for us to know because it won't be something that we can just go really quickly on some of it. It'll look really slow, but it will still be moving. So I just wanted to make sure we were all aware of that. The other thing is that we do have some projects that will start before this may completely be final. So the board passed a resolution to reimburse for anything that's in this bond that we may go ahead and start. I'm going to give you an example, the turf. In order to get on the schedule for summer, we had to get all of the documentation and the information over to them in January. And that's to be on a June schedule so that we can get done prior to that very first practice. So that has all happened and we will continue on those items that time is of the essence on. But that is why that resolution is so important as we're looking ahead to making sure work can get done before the school year starts for those items that can make or break student activities. All right, so at this time, I would like to open the floor for any comments or questions from the board, from our public, at least as far as the facility portion of this.
We have a drop dead date that the funds have to be expended by, though, correct?
That's for ESSER. And then the bank will ask that we have 2 years is kind of the usual. If things get delayed because of unforeseen circumstances, we just have additional check-ins that we have to do with them.
And there are some arbitrage issues that could become impacted if the project is unduly extended. And as it really couldn't come at a worse time in some respects because the county has $12 million in ARPA funds that must be expended, but committed by the end of 24 and expended by 25, 26 if it's a capital project. City has that much, if not more. I'm not sure what their final number was. It's all hitting at one time. And I really am concerned about what it's going to mean either for the for the projects that aren't Davis Bacon, you might as well assume they are, almost, given the demand that's in the market right now. So it could easily have an inflationary impact on the prices that we realize. I'm hoping it doesn't, but it's a situation we have. And I haven't followed House Bill 1336, but 1376, but this is a good example of why we don't want to be stuck with having to have public question referenda every 4 years and have all that time, all those projects compressed into a really tight timeline for anybody that's going to go out to the market. We're facing it now for other reasons, but that would be structurally creating similar problems for any public question project.
Since you asked, I wasn't here in January, and I'm a little bit concerned. We're stretching the 20 million. I think that potentially hurts a large second project coming down the pike, and so I would just encourage administration to stay as close to 15 as possible. Because if we spend 20, I don't know how we get another 20 very easily, and so. I was much happier with the 15 now and the 15 project maybe in a few years. I think if we spend 20 now, it makes us really tight for that second project. And so I didn't have a chance to say it last month, so I'll say it now. That's it.
All right, now we'll hear from a representative from Stifel, our underwriter and CFO Bolster, about how those projects will be financed, as well as information about the effect on the typical property tax rate.
Good evening, Luke Brugman with Stifel. We serve as bond underwriter for the school corporation. Here to talk about the financing of the proposed projects. Again, you guys have heard this or seen very similar information in the last couple of months. But feel free to stop me at any point and ask questions.
Oh, do we have the clicker? Okay. I was looking forward to it.
So the first thing that we look at anytime we're looking at structuring a new project is, of course, we start with the school corporation's current outstanding obligations. In 2024, the school corporation's debt service rate was 15 cents, which is extremely low if you look at school corporations statewide. There's a little bit of a drop in 2005 and 2026, but the school is completely out of debt by 2028, which is, again, extremely uncommon for small corporations. In gray was the existing debt, and red is what the potential bond issue could look like, and what that structure would look like. So this is a $19,050,000 borrowing. This would result in just over a 5-cent increase in the debt service tax rate over the 2024 rate. This increase is for 2025 and 6, and then there's some additional capacity beginning in 2027. So you can see if the school corporation wants to come back in a couple of years to fund any additional projects, there is certainly capacity within that rate to do that at that time. We are structuring this with a 15-year term and a 5% interest rate. If you were to sell bonds right now, you're probably closer to 3.5 or 3.75. This is just the first step in the legal process. We still have to get through a lot of it. So we're being pretty conservative with our estimates, knowing that the interest rate market can be pretty volatile at times. We're also assuming assessed value growth of 0%. So assuming that does not change going forward. Over the last 3 to 4 years, the school corporation's seen some decent growth in their assessed value. I think it's been in the 3 to 4% on average. So that could also potentially make this tax rate look a little bit better. Again, trying to be conservative with these initial estimates, knowing that this is just the first step in the process. So of that $19,050,000, this is what the estimated breakdown would look like. Just under 18.4, the largest portion is going towards hard and soft project costs. In green, this cost of issuance, that's paying your lawyers, your rating fee, underwriter, all of those financing costs that go into a transaction. And then in red is the capitalized interest. And essentially what that is we're taking bond proceeds to pay investors the interest that they're due on their first payment. If we did not do that, then that 5-cent increase would be not 8, 9, 10 cent increase. So we're essentially taking some of the bond proceeds to minimize that rate increase. hopefully, this number in the gray gets a little bit bigger as some of the other ones get a little bit smaller. Using the 5% interest rate, that's where we get to that 333,000 in capitalized interest. If the rate comes in lower, that number is going to be less and result in more dollars for the hard and soft project costs. So here are the maximum legal parameters that will be in next month's resolutions. Again, we're not approving anything tonight, but this is what it would look like if you decide to move forward here. So the $19,050,000 is the total borrowing amount of the bonds. The next two rows is really just a breakdown of what I just went through on the pie chart. The estimated maximum interest rate is 6%. Again, I've already reiterated that typically right now you'd be anywhere between 3.5% to 4%. But there's a total interest cost there of just over $9.5 million. The max annual payment is the max payment the school corporation can legally make in any given year for this project, and that would be $3 million. If you simply take that $3 million and divide it by the school corporation's net assessed value, you're going to get the maximum tax rate impact of 0.1879. That does not factor in any assessed value growth or debt rolling off. Whenever we factor that in, that is where the 0.0539 comes in. That was shown on the previous charts. There's a couple additional ratios at the bottom, which is simply the school corporation's max annual payments as a percentage of net assessed value and the school corporation's direct and overlapping debt as a percentage of your net assessed value. So that's factoring in the county's debt, the library's debt, township, city, all of those. That's the ratio there at the bottom there. Those are statutorily required to be presented tonight. So that's why that information is in there. That's all I have. Again, this is very similar to what you guys have seen. Probably the addition of this slide here. So I'll stop there. I'm happy to answer any questions from the board.
Maybe you could repeat, since John had a good question before, and your slide 3, where you talked about the future of possibilities having more bonds,
Sure.
And how that would impact with what we're doing now.
Yep. So with this $19 million issuance, again, increasing the rate up to just above 20 cents there, but then the ability to come back in 26 for an additional borrowing to fund any additional projects at that point, depending on where interest rates are and assessed value is at that time, you're going to be in the $15 to $20 million ballpark. And that would be if you went out 20 years for that borrowing. Right now, we're looking at 15 years for this borrowing, but certainly leaves you flexibility for some additional projects.
Questions, comments?
The only thing I was going to add is we also did a very comprehensive property tax base analysis and revenue projections. If you remember, that was presented at the work session in January. That provided a very detailed overview of the impact, and it is very minimal. If you do recall, and many of the taxpayers would see no increase because the majority are at that circuit breaker cap, as you mentioned. So I just wanted to, we have that. It was available to the public on January 10th, and it's in your packets today. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. And to add on to that, that is on the last bullet on the last page. So any homeowner that is in the city of Richmond, Wayne Township, that their homestead assessed value, the market value of their home is just over $80,000, and they are at the caps. So they would feel an increase whatsoever for this project. Thank you, Ms. Bolter, for reminding me of that.
Yes.
And approximately those people who are below 80, what type of impact would they see? So
it's just over 5 cents per $100 of their assessed value, but before you factor in any deductions, so standard deductions, supplemental deductions, things like that. They have veterans or any of those additional ones.
So 5 cents per $100.
If
Correct.
the assessed value,
right.
With the homestead, if the property is assessed at $50,000, it would be, and they're in the Richmond City, Wayne Township, it would be $6.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have anything else to add, David?
Nope.
All right, we'll now open the public hearing. Remember, if you'd like, to have anybody sign up to speak.
We do not have anyone signed up.
Well, let's move on. At this time, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Nicole Colts, second by Member Zaleski. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Next on the agenda are our consent minutes. Oh, sorry, public commentary. Let's get it in. We see, have anybody?
We do have one person for public comment.
Okay. Maximum time for individual speakers is 5 minutes per person. The board expects professional decorum and factual information from the speaker. The president reserves the right to interrupt the speaker with the statement, and if the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, omitted, or obscene, or if it interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Comments recognizing the work of staff and students are always welcome. However, critical remarks concerning specific school personnel or students are to be made through the complaint process available in policy 8130. School participants respond to public comments during the meeting. The public participant will receive a personal follow-up email from the board president or vice president within a week. All right.
Kristen Jones is our first speaker. Our only speaker signed up.
I get nervous, but. Hi, my name is Kristen Jones, and I'm an ELL teacher at Vale and Star, and I also serve as the WIDA testing coordinator for our district. Over the past 6.5 weeks, 5 ELL teachers have been given approximately 1,400 tests to about 350 EL students. The WIDA test is an annual assessment that measures English growth in 4 language domains: listening, reading, speaking, and writing. With that being said, I'd like to mention that our department is understaffed. The IDOE indicates in the 2023-2024 ELL guidebook that our teacher to student ratio should be 30 students to one teacher. And right now we're sitting at approximately 71 students to 1 teacher. We have also continued to enroll new ELL students during our WIDA testing window. According to the IDOE, we must put them through the WIDA screener within 14 days of the RCS registration. With all of that being said, I do want to congratulate our small but mighty ELL department on a job well done. Scheduling this many tests for this many WIDA tests and screeners is a huge undertaking, especially since some of our ELL teachers work at multiple buildings. At this point, I do want to take a moment to highlight and thank everyone who has made the WIDA testing process successful. Thank you to the following ELL teachers: Kelly Doyle, who is the ELL teacher at Charles, Prestdale, Hibbard, Fairview, and Westview; Johnny Daniels, who's the ELL teacher at Test; Kelsey Sickman, the ELL teacher at Dennis; and Jose Iglesias, who's the ELL teacher at Richmond High School. Also, thank you to Elizabeth Markworth, the Director of Exceptional Education, which our ELL department falls under her direction. Her support and knowledge are very appreciated. And a special thank you to Mark Fowler, who serves as our district testing coordinator. Mr. Fowler had not worked with the WIDA assessment before, and so he asked me to come to his office and walk him through the ins and outs of the WIDA test. He then came over to Vale to watch me administer the exam to a group of 2nd grade students. His interest in what our department is working on and his continued support is greatly appreciated. Thank you to the building administrators, secretaries, classroom teachers, and other building staff who were not only flexible with us pulling students out of class, but who were also supportive of our testing environments. Thank you to our instructional interpreters, Sandra, Terry, Pam, Melanie, and Rosie, who supported our ELL population while we were administering WIDA to small groups of ELL students. Our interpreter support within the classroom is important for our students' growth in English language development. Thank you to Alice Hazelbaker for your technical assistance and support, as well as Cindy Alsmeyer and Bridget Hazelbaker for helping us with testing materials and for notifying us when new materials arrive at central office. As you can see, it truly does take a village to administer for our ever-growing ELL population, and I'm thankful to each and every one who has helped. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, next on the agenda are consent items.
President Walton, trustees, Tony King, Walton, should I have the floor for consent items 6.01, 6.07, and the addendum accompanying 6.02, human resources.
Move for approval.
Motion by member Zaleski,
Second.
second by member Breton. All right, are there any comments or questions? All right, I will be abstaining on this vote, so it'll be 6 voting members. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
President Walton, before moving on, if you don't mind, I'd like to welcome you aboard. And it's the human resources report that was just approved by our Board of Governors. It now acknowledges and highlights the fact that have been appointed to the director of facilities position here in the community schools. And so, welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Richmond Community Schools as a
All comes full circle.
Questions, comments, trustees?
Thank you, Brad, right? For 7.5 years, is that right? Of service on the
It feels
board.
like much longer.
It's like 3, it's been 7.5. So
Way
thank you
longer.
for your insight on this board and your expertise. And I think this is sad for the board, but good for RCS in general, so.
Thank you.
No, we really appreciate your leadership, your friendship, and it's been a rocky road. Just we've gone through some stuff, as a group, and yet you've always had your chin up and ready with a ready laugh. So I just appreciate that.
Thank you.
So I've only been on the board, just over a year, and I've appreciated your leadership. And just don't think you're done with us because you're getting off the board.
May I save my comment till later?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I was to say thank you for me coming on, being my somewhat pseudo mentor. So I appreciate it. The class is going to slightly be down in members, moving over to the other side.
Just shifting leadership.
It's shifting years, but and that if you guys don't know, that's the class of '97.
That's right.
That we mention every meeting. So, but yes.
Don't be jealous. Don't be jealous.
It's only a few years off.
But no, thank you.
Thank you.
You're gonna miss me, Walton. I think this is a great move for your family and you and the kids and RCS. So I'm super excited for you.
I'll go ahead and say it now.
No, I will still be a pain in your
So, I said this the other day during our executive retreat, our board retreat, that it has been certainly a pleasure and honor working with this board, this particular board over the last few years. I think the additions that we've had, whether it be through replacement of board members who have moved on or those who have won by elections, this is a cohesive board that works well together, has disagreements in public and sometimes behind the board, behind the doors. But when we walk out, we do it in a professional manner. Brad, I believe this is your second time serving as board president. And each time your service came at a much needed time of leadership. And I cannot express from enough how you have been such an asset in the role as president and those times that you have served. You have navigated us through some difficulties and you have kept us on track and on course with the task at hand. And that is always coming down to doing what's best for our students and for our staff. So I'm glad that you're going to serve us, in this capacity. Your family has long been a member of the Richmond Community Schools community as teachers, as administrators. You get to move to a different venue, but I know that your heart is still going to be with support, and we're going to be supportive of you too. So thank you very much.
I'm gonna miss you guys. But as been said, I'm not leaving the corporation. I'm just shifting my focus a little bit, and I think the timing's right. Where again, I'm gonna hopefully help the corporation out in a different different role, and look forward to working with everybody here in a little bit different capacity. So I'm nervously excited. So it's gonna be a definite change. Congratulations.
Before Wednesday night opens, we may need to hear from you.
Can you imagine the first time he steps up to give a presentation?
I think Karen's gonna be like, "Do you take this one?"
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that. All right. Action items. 7.01 donations.
President Walton, trustees, I was going to ask that Chief Financial Officer of HR, this is Jamie Bolder, join us for action item 7.01 through 7.05. This is Bolder, the floor is yours for a while.
Thank you. Before you, I ask that you review and accept the 6 donations totaling $1,975. We have William, and I am not very good with names. Thank you, Dory. For Charles students, $75. Lucinda Roberts and Darren Roberts. For Richmond High School, the Business Professionals of America for $200. Van Fleet Insurance, RHS Athletics for the boys basketball program for $500. Community Family Funeral Home for the RHS Athletics donation for concessions for the athletic program totaling $800. Historic Depot District of Richmond for the athletic department for the cheer program for $150, and Rick Lowe's for Civic Hall for the Civic Hall Performing Arts Center proudly presenting series for $250. In total, $1,975 for your consideration.
I move to approve the donations as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Member Stevens, second by Member Stoltz. Any comments or questions?
I just want to comment how all of us who probably had Mr. Dory were able to snap up on that. So, it's just, that was one of our teachers back at Fairview, maybe some other places. So, yep.
The only comment I have, I guess I'm gonna note this being on the board a little more and just request that Miss Bolster is one of the name readers at either honors and awards or graduation.
No. In fact, purposely got out of the spelling bee for that reason. Numbers are
You did well.
ENGULF.
All right, any more comments or questions? And the obligatory thank you. I mean, it's always overwhelming to see the support from our community partners and patrons. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Next is 7.02, the personnel hiring and background checks.
Presented for your approval is the personnel hiring and background report. The background check report is for employment and offenses that would not exclude the employee from employment pursuant to Indiana Code 20-26-5-11.2.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Member Zaleski, second by Member Stevens. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Next up is 7.03, the 2025 budget calendar.
Admittedly, this is very early for you to see. However, I like to start the process as soon as I end the process so that it is not such an undertaking within a few weeks, but more so for the entire year. So the budget process is very fluid throughout the year. As such, it is important to continually monitor and review the current year budget while preparing for the future budget. On-time property tax bills are a top priority to the Department of Local Government and Finance for 24 pay 25, as it always is. To achieve this objective, it is necessary for all units in the assessment and property tax billing process to understand that there are sequential deadlines for completing statutory responsibilities. The 2025 budget calendar reflects both statutory and internally established deadlines. As reflected in the budget calendar, the public hearing is scheduled for September 25th of 2024 with an adoption date of October 9th, 2024, and that is going with your already adopted calendar. So for your approval is the 2025 budget preparation calendar.
Move that we approve action item 7.03.
Second.
Motion by member Stoll, second by member Zaleski. Any comments or questions? All right, all those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. All right. 7.04, investment income.
So before you is an additional agenda item that was added. So during the annual investment report in January, it was reported that our checking accounts with JP Morgan Chase were restructured to interest-bearing accounts. At that time, it was also mentioned that additional conversations were planned for after the first of the year to further consider additional restructuring options. The first priority was to ensure all accounts were in balance with the software conversion and appropriate snapshot of daily balances and expenditure trends were captured. Beginning in October 2023, the accounts payable and payroll accounts were modified to interest bearing. The average daily balance in 2023 was approximately $7.1 million. Since October of 23, we have received 2.07% interest on these funds, totaling $37,062.72. It is now recommended that we further change the structure of the accounts to a sweep account. The sweep account is a financial tool to manage our cash balances effectively. This will allow us to maximize the interest earned on our funds while ensuring liquidity and meeting our daily needs. A conservative target balance will be established to ensure daily clearing of checks. Any cash balance over the target balance will automatically sweep the excess into a higher yielding money market fund. Despite the funds being invested, sweep accounts are designed so that the funds are readily accessible. Funds will be swept automatically back into the checking accounts daily to cover transactions and to maintain the target balance. By automating the process of transferring funds between accounts, it eliminates the need to manually monitor cash balance daily and moving funds between the accounts manually. The result is optimizing our returns and minimizing our risk. Further, it is recommended that the 100% U.S. Treasury mutual fund option be selected for the sweep account. The funds are completely backed by the underlying U.S. Treasury with the investment into the pool of U.S. Treasury securities. The structure can be amended at any time, and there is no investment period. The current yields are 4.78%. An analysis was completed for 2023 with a yield rate of 4.53, utilizing a 1 million target balance and the potential for investment return of $313,681. So pursuant to policy 5144, while the treasurer is authorized to make investments of available monies to maximize the return on the corporation's excess cash balance, it is also desired that the board approve that in a formal setting. So recommended for your consideration is to approve the investment structure as presented and authorize the CFO to execute the documents accordingly. I will also say that I have included for your review an investment summary report that I intend to include moving forward with the monthly reports so that you can see per month that interest breakdown for that investment income that we would be receiving.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion by member Zaleski, second by member Stevens. Comments or questions?
Just for investments, Ron, we have to have it in investments that are backed by U.S. Treasury or FDIC. Correct.
We're limited. We're limited, but we no longer have. There used to be almost like a formula allocation, where it is now we're free to shop the market with the monies we have. The sweep account is something we tried in the past, many years ago, with a local bank. I don't know that. I think technology's come farther than it now than it was then, because it didn't seem to be that impactful. But I think by the minimum reserve balance, creating the core and guaranteeing the monies that we have will be swept efficiently and available, I think it makes sense. So I don't have any issues with it at all.
And Jamie, you've used this strategy at two previous jobs successfully.
Yep.
So
And to Mr. Cross's point, the technology has certainly changed in the last even 10 years regarding this. So this is something I implemented at Howard County when I was there, and we were able to just maximize the daily investment sweep between the funds while keeping what we needed on hand for the transactional day to day. But the liquidity was perfect because it was still readily available each day. We could move that target balance as we needed to. And I would say that I will probably, because we're going to start very conservative with the target balance, anything at or below the target balance will still receive that 2.07 percentage. Anything above that excess will be swept nightly, earn that 4.78 and sweep back for availability. So each day that amount that's sweeping out will be different. That target balance will remain the same so that we can just clear day to day. It was something that certainly helped to maximize revenue sources at my prior districts. And so you were able to start helping budget some of that interest income, or offset for future planning or for investing within yourself. So this is certainly a stepped process. As you can see, it's a little bit different of approach with the budget. This is the next step. And then as we move, because I think one of the things that Karen and I have talked about is really, as we're moving forward with some of these projects, have a sinking reserve with some of these funds where it's sinking back into a future planning, so that we have that availability in house as well. So that is certainly one of the step processes that we're going to look at moving forward as well.
And it'll be extremely impactful when we're paying projected a 3-point-something% interest rate on potential bond issuance, but receive back a little.
Yeah, and that is one thing that you can see in that investment report, that we do have a current investment with Indiana Trust for those bond proceeds, and that we're currently working through. That is certainly something that I will want to look to continue with this next round, because we can really maximize those, use those local funds that are garnering lower interest, and even with the sweep, so that we can keep those readily available and then basically repay ourselves back when we need to write those big checks through this bond issuance too.
Well, we don't want to celebrate inflation. If we were having this discussion 5 years ago, it would probably have a little bit different tone.
Oh, yes. And that is one thing too. I will say that, going through the property tax crisis of 2014, I'm trying to think what year I was the assessor. One of the things that we saw then is you do very sparingly and very conservatively budget interest, because it's outside of your sphere of control. So that is one thing we definitely will consider, because you want to use this as additional revenue. One of the nice things is being able to try to do this as a planned attack too, as we're trying to step of the Esser Cliff. That is one of the approaches to try to help with that, because we have, I think we're 2 steps of making sure that we are 100% planned for all of that. So that's definitely been a tiered approach as well.
Any other comments or questions?
one more thing real quick. I do appreciate you bringing this before our board sooner rather than later, in order to, again, if we vote yes, to capture that interest.
And I appreciate for entertaining this as well, just because I do understand that, you know, it was a late add-on. But I felt like it was more to you guys to decide, just knowing that we could capture that additional 30,000 just in the month between the next board meeting. So thank you for that consideration.
All right. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Next up, consideration is 7.05 policies.
Mr. Mops has presented the last batch of NEOLA policies for your consideration. Then at the next point, I think he has been in communication. It's his plan then to follow this directly. I think that he did send an email seeking guidance as far as those working groups to make sure that we jumpstart this, because this will be the batch that will possibly be reviewed within that. And we have also, through this process, really targeted the things that we wanted direct input and guidance also from the board and additional insight. So this is the last batch, and then we're going to circle that around with beginning the working group so that we can begin reviewing these as detailed and in depth, even more so that I know what he has poured into it. And I do want to commend Mr. Mop's efforts, because this has been he's really taken this and ran with it, and it has taken a considerable amount of his time. I also do want to say how much I appreciate Dr. Johnson and her efforts, because she too, she's been like another full-time employee that we've gotten during this process. So I really appreciate that. And the timing is really superb, I would say, because we're getting ready. The legislators are in session. We always joke that if they could just skip a session, we could catch up with the prior session, you know. So it is cyclical, but so it is a good timing that we can jumpstart the working group, review these, and then have that in place for the legislative review, because there's going to be, I would say, I call them a dump around June from the legislative session that they're getting ready to go out of. So we'll have that process in place before those come, that they can go through that working group then before coming here.
We also sincerely appreciate the work of our board of trustees thus far. It's been
a lot.
As Mrs. Bowles referenced, and as we are aware, as I established the superintendent's working group, I know that there have been members that have willingly stated they'd love to be a part of it. We'll put it in motion.
All right.
Move to approve the remaining Neola policies, the batch 4 for first and final reading.
I'll second that.
Motion by member Zaleski, second by member Stoltz. Comments or questions?
I'll be voting no again. There's been no board review. We have seen the policies, but there's no process. While I think it's closed, is still, I do not know exactly what the process looks like.
Anything else?
Dr. Wright, you had, we've discussed the working group. Was there a couple board members that you've approached that will be part of that working group, and that process will be reached out to? Who are those?
Those members will be Member Stevens and Member Pickering. Throughout the course of the conversations that we've had regarding policies, I know that I believe our very last board meeting and our working group, Mr. Stevens and Ms. Pickering were adamant that they participate, and we are going to be accommodating and making sure that schedules align, so that not only they but also members of our central office leadership team and the community leadership team take part in establishing processes to thoroughly review these policies and strengthen our results.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mops will reach out to both of you to make sure that we schedule this around your guys' schedules as well. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay. Full board, Nicole Stoltz,
Aye.
Mr. Gillespie,
Aye.
Mr. Weber,
What do you want for an affirmative or negative?
yes or no? Yes or no? So, you approve or no?
I do not approve.
Okay. I approve. Ms. Broughton,
Aye.
Mr. Stevens,
Aye.
and Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1. All right, 7.06, Administrator Assistance Service Agreement.
President Walton, trustees, I'm going to ask the Chief of Secretary of Education, Mr. Mark Fowler, introduce our guest as well as represent the
Yeah.
7.06
So, Mr. Caldwell, if you wouldn't mind coming to the podium. Trustees, what Mr. Caldwell is going to be talking about tonight is one of the things that I've been charged with looking into and investigating is what a potential realignment might look like for grade levels in Richmond Community Schools. And one of the things that I think is really important is that we talk to experts about that who have done that. And so tonight, what we're going to hear is kind of the story of administrative assistants, what they've done, the work they've done with this. And then afterwards, we could have discussion about that. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you. Before I begin, though, I want to say kudos to this board and to the superintendent. I've been a superintendent 17 years. I now work at Ball State as a professor, travel around and meet with boards, and then I also do work with administrator assistants. And this is one of those. I was like, I may want to do this again. I mean, this is fun. And you celebrated kids, and you celebrated each other, and kudos to you. A matter of fact, Dr. Wright, I might have to talk to you about presenting to my class about how this happens, how the magic happens, because this was amazing tonight. So kudos. I want to talk to you a little bit, though, about my second job, which was with administrator assistants. Administrator assistants started a number of years ago by two retired educators, Steve Whitnauer and Gib Crimmins, and they decided that it would be good to put together an organization to work with schools and help them to solve problems. And that organization has now grown to over 40 of us, of retired or more seasoned superintendents and business managers and principals and so forth, to work with schools to solve problems. And so, and challenges that you may have. And so that's why I'm here tonight. Mr. Steve Edwards, if you approve this contract, he's a former Marion superintendent as well as Ball State superintendent. He would be leading this. He's not available this evening, so he asked me to pitch hit, and I'm glad to do so. But as we move forward, I want to thank you, if you could go to the next slide, for the opportunity to be able to work with Richmond Community Schools. I know Dr. Wright, we get to work with each other at Ball State through our study council. I know Jamie, her and I had a lot of experiences in Howard County together. You have a tremendous team here, and I'm just honored to be here. And I know that Administrator Assistant is excited to work with you on this realignment study. And so one of the things that I've heard by meeting with Mark and also your leadership team, and then tonight again, was this $20 million bond issuance. This is a perfect time to begin looking at realignment of your school district. And the reason why is you're going to have some folks coming in. I don't want to call myself an expert. The two gentlemen that are becoming with me will be experts. Can look at that and say, hey, here's some ways that you might be able to reconfigure your district and use that money that you're talking about tonight more effectively. Also, I heard somebody come in tonight talk about staffing issues. That's another reason why you might want to take a look at school realignment. You may be able to use your personnel more effectively. Next slide, please. So it's a perfect time to consider school realignment. Can assist the district with a plan to maximize your building use, more efficient allocation of resources for the long term, so that as you go through this project, You're not going to waste dollars. And we can help you with that. It's extremely wise to address major needs in a one-step approach. It's a perfect time for realignment with the debt issues being improved. And there's a lot of research that supports this. It can lead to more efficient use of resources, including facilities and staff. You can have fewer transitions between schools, which can reduce anxiety and stress for students. Realignment can lead to more balanced class sizes, improving individual attention to students, enhancing the ability for teachers to address diverse learning needs efficiently, enable schools to offer more specialized programs tailored to specific age group, can lead to enhanced learning experience and opportunities for students. So there's all types of reasons. There's all types of reasons as to why you might want to look at this reorganization of your schools. So who's going to be doing the study? Well, yours truly. I'm Dr. Tracy Cadell. I'm retired from the Eastern Howard School Corporation. I'm currently an assistant clinical professor at Ball State. I have worked on a study for school realignment, although my focus at that time was on technology. Assisting me will be Mr. Wayne Stubbs. He's a retired superintendent from Concord Schools at Elkhart, has 37 years of experience. And then the person who's going to be leading the search, next slide please, would be Mr. Steve Edwards. He's a retired superintendent from Marion, and he was also involved. I don't know if you're aware, but Ball State University now is the governance over Muncie Community Schools. And Steve went into Muncie Community Schools. They were having all kinds of financial problems, unbelievable, and helped turn that district around, leading into the takeover. And Muncie Schools is flourishing. So Steve knows what he's doing. And so between the three of us, don't want to say we're old, but we're looking at about 115 years of experience, which we will be able to provide your district. You've got rural school experience, you've got suburban rural experience, you've got urban school experience. We all have different philosophies. We all have different things we've seen on how to serve kids. Sorry, I have some water. And we've been involved in previous studies, including South Vermilion in 2021, Logansport in 2020, and Plymouth in 2014, although I have to say I was not involved in that study. I was the acting superintendent at the time. So what's the approach we would use? We would start by touring your facilities so that we, ground level, we're walking your district, we're seeing your schools to determine your area need from a curricular and facilities needs viewpoint. We'll review and discuss current and potential grade level arrangements. We're going to work with your local architect, Kevin McCurdy, to gain his insight on district facilities. I believe right now, if this contract is approved, we're going to be here on March the 14th. Love to have board members involved if you'd love to be involved. Review conducted for district facilities by Fanning, Howie, and others. It's my understanding you have some of those, so we'd like to review those. Study grade level enrollment and trends. Review educational programming and possible cost enhancements. And then the big one is we're going to conduct interviews. We're not going to survey everybody in the district. We don't necessarily feel that's effective. But what we're going to do is, working with your administration, conduct interviews with essential educational and community partners to determine what's best for your district. Okay, and we're looking at probably right around 100 folks. We think that'll be a good measure for us. And then we'll consider students' transportation and other impacts by doing this particular study. But we don't make the final decision. And I want to make that clear. You make the decisions, right? Your board, superintendent, administrative team, you make the decision. We will come back to you with a report with some potential recommendations and say, you know, these three old guys, we think you should think about this. And then you'll have to make those decisions. So I don't want you to think that, hey, these three out of towners are coming in here telling us what to do. Not at all. We're going to come in and say, you know, we've got 115 years of experience. We've been in schools all over the state. We've seen all kinds of potential realignments. And here's what we think would be best for you and your district. Here are some options for you to consider. Then you have to decide what you'd like to do. Questions?
Prior to taking questions from the board, I'd just like to add to, and Dr. Cole, sincerely appreciate you being here this evening. And I sincerely appreciate the conversations as we are in this infancy stage of discovery. I know that in acquiring and coming into this role, prior to my arrival into this role, there had been a decision established and made by our board of trustees and family and staff at that particular time to transition away from a particular grade level alignment to what we currently have. Throughout the course of my tenure in the seat, I know we, as a board of governors, had conversations surrounding the monitoring of what we currently have in place. And throughout those conversations, I know that questions have surfaced as to what else could potentially be. And so, in inviting Dr. Cole, administrative assistants, those who for more than 115 years combined have seen and been a part of, bore witness and provided guidance to such positive realignment experiences in the past. We felt it was wise to tap into and allow for humility to bring so as to, as Dr. Cole referenced, not waste a lot of human capital as well on things that have successfully been carried out in other corporations and of similar demographic. Very similar to what we've done in our business and operations office with some of the debt issuance and some of the consultation servicing that we've received. This will allow us to continue to, in layman's terms, keep our eye on the day-to-day bowl while also receiving from expert, resident experts, a needs-based assessment synopsis. And so we appreciate you being here to present the questions, comments.
Yeah, I did have one. What would the proposed timeline be?
Oh, our plan would be to start here in March, and I believe we agreed
End of June.
June.
Recommendation would be the end of June. Okay. Thanks.
Several of us have sat through this process before, and really not too long ago. And we've done a lot of the work, and I enjoy doing the work. I enjoy talking to stakeholders and community members and parents and teachers and staff. And, one of the really unique, I guess this is for your information that you need to know coming into this thing is one of the driving forces of going to the configuration that we have now was we have a very, very large migratory community or that, that are renters that shift homes, especially throughout the course of the year. And it felt like we were redistricting every other year or even yearly because we would go from, up to a 200 student swing in the course of a year from building to building at a middle school level. It was, this was kind of like the equalizer out to where we were able to, get staffing to where it needed to be and things like that. I'm not saying that's what we're doing is perfect, because it's not. I know having kids in the system, there's a lot of animosity, sending your kid from elementary school to one 5th and 6th grade building and then one 7th and 8th grade building. I mean, there's a lot of animosity and a lot to do with the turnover and shifting building to building. that's one of the biggest things we gotta consider too, is the fluctuation of how our patrons move around the city. And because, I mean, in the course of a year, you can have a shift, and all of a sudden you're way understaffed in a building, overstaffed in another. And it's a delicate dance.
And I know, speaking with Dr. Kowalski there in Muncie Community Schools, and as she was transitioning into that role, that was one of the things that I know that to President Walton's statement, one of the things that they had the transient population, especially with Ball State coming into the entire school system. And I know that that's something that you all are relatively familiar with.
Absolutely. And you sound like you're one of those key educational leaders we're going to need to talk to. There's no doubt about that. And we will work with your team to not only talk to people like you who have that institutional knowledge, that historical knowledge, but also community partners who, you know, they're going to have input as well. They're going to influence your decisions as we move forward.
In addition to Dr. Caldwell, I do understand and know, speaking with superintendents from around the state, there are several that will conduct periodically such reviews or similar reviews as their demographics change.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I just finished some work in Hamilton Southeastern. You may have heard they've got a new superintendent, and one of the things they're talking about is this very same thing. You know, putting together a new strategic plan and moving forward. So no, it's an ongoing process when you're serving kids. There's no doubt about it.
I think parents and teachers hear realignment and get very nervous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, we don't have an agenda here. You're non-biased. You're coming in looking at everything from kind of an outside and an experienced perspective and just saying, here's what may work best, in our opinion, with our experience, having looked at all the realms that go around RCS and the people who live here.
That's a great point. We don't have an emotional attachment to your district. And so when you're living in the district, and sometimes, not always, but if you're the superintendent or you're the principal or the business manager or a board member, sometimes community members tell you what you want to hear. They don't necessarily tell you what you need. And so we're coming in from the outside saying, hey, we just want to serve your district. What's the best way to serve your kids? And listen, most of our time period will not be asking lots and lots of questions. Most of our time when we're here interviewing, and by the way, those interview questions will be shared with your administration and we will get approval. And I assume the board will also be involved with that. You will approve those. We're not going to surprise you with these questions. But folks tend to be more honest when you're coming in from outside the district and you're saying, hey, what do your kids need? Just like tonight, that was valuable information I heard tonight with respect to feeling understaffed. Because when you're looking at this sort of realignment, is there a way we can help that situation, right? Because when you're living in it, you're just thinking, what can I do? Is there anything I can do? We need more help. And sometimes, I'm not saying this is the case because we haven't been in your district yet, but sometimes hiring more personnel is not always the answer. Sometimes it's how personnel is aligned in the district. So,
and to piggyback on what Dr. Caldwell also referenced, Mr. Martin, so glad you brought that up because during our community conversations last year, when our cabinet team went out and met with our community patrons, along with the conversations that we've had, the conversations I've had with parental groups, it has come up as far as our current opening, and many of them could recall what the previous alignments felt like, not only as students themselves, but also for their elder children. And so this is a great opportunity for us just to take the temperature as to where things are and then allow the data to drive our decision. Folks have emotional attachments to their schools, right? They do, and and you see these folks at church, you see them in the grocery store, you see them in classrooms, and so forth, and you know, I've got little Johnny in 4th grade, and you're talking about moving him to a different school. Oh my gosh, right? And so then you feel like, oh, there's little Johnny over there. But what about the other 28 kids in this classroom, right? So we gotta look at the entire picture and then give you some recommendations and say, okay, have you thought about this school board, superintendent, leadership team? What do you think's best for your kids? Based upon what we were able to find through the process of interviewing folks, taking a tour of your district, talking to all kinds of people, working with your architect, looking at your past studies, saying, okay, how can we help Richmond?
So
Go. No, go. Princess.
thank you. So a couple things that always drive school corporations into studying alignment or realignment is either growth, such as the HSCs, the Westfields, and everything else. When you're looking at resources that exist and projecting for 3 to 5 years down the road because of continued student growth and community growth. The other, unfortunately, is where we lie, and that's the transitory student population that constantly uh, moves from location to location. As President Walton had stated, um, there have been times where within a year's time, this building may start out in August of having X amount of students, and by the time March comes around, there are 50, 60 students less because of the movement. We did find out earlier from Mrs. Bolzer that our numbers were not as low as what the state may have projected originally. So we're okay with that, but still, it's prudent to see where we are today if this should pass. Prudent to see where we are today, where we're going to be in 2 years based on the trends, and where we're going to be in 5 years. Something was mentioned about staffing, earlier that we heard. Others, again, go to the student population that we have right now. You have to consider parenting in their employment and everything else to see if that transitional trend is going to continue. And, unfortunately, it doesn't mean that we're doing this today or that we're going to be doing anything. It just means it's prudent that if we look at it right now, so that, in a couple of years' time, we do not be in a position where we have to make a sudden change without preparing the community for it.
Well, I cannot speak for Dr. Wright, but I can tell you as a former school superintendent, I never like surprises, right? And I don't think boards like surprises. And so it's prudent to plan ahead and to be proactive and to move forward. And this is the perfect time with the other work that you're doing.
Just question to the timing. So doing this in the spring, does that make more sense compared to the fall? Because we're going to get the data in June, and then before anything would be able to put in place, if those recommendations we're going to be another year dated versus doing it in the fall. It's not going to be we're going to be dated a little less by another school. Will be dated by one less school year.
Can you repeat that again?
So doing it in the fall, doing it in the 23-24 school year versus the 24-25 school year, if you're actually going to put that in practice, you're looking at 25-26, which would be the next school year, versus doing it now, we're 2 school years.
Okay. I can tell you from my perspective that when this happens, you're going to get a lot of discussion in your community, right? People are going to be talking what's going on, and it's key to be transparent. But the other thing that happens, if you choose to do something, it takes a lot of time for your administration to get prepared to the types of changes that you're talking about. So the sooner that you can get the study in your hands and start thinking about some really important board decisions, you can begin to move forward. Because every month that you wait, you're going to be backdating when those changes are going to occur. Because it takes time for people to get acclimated to change. There's going to be unintended, I don't want to say consequences, but certainly questions that we haven't even thought of yet that people are going to say, but have you thought about this? Administration, have you thought about this? Board, have you thought about this? And so you want to have time to allow that to percolate up so that those questions can be asked and that we can generate answers. And again, the sooner you get the study done and you begin to make those decisions as a group, the better, because the longer you wait for that study, the longer you're going to have to wait before you make those changes.
Okay, so then looking at the contract,
Now I have to tell you, I cannot answer anything on the contract because that's above my pay grade. I was not involved in any of this.
It has a March 1 start date.
Yeah.
it has a March 1 start date, not a completion date, with a single fee that says so. So this would be essentially a spring 23-24 school year study. Would that include any look at the fall and the changes that would have happened from one school year to the next? When it says all inclusive, it doesn't give an end date on the contract.
So I can just speak to my conversations with Whit. Basically, what he said is all encompassing for him means whatever we need them to do. If that means something in the fall, that was one of the questions Attorney Cross had about the contract, was that specific question. And he said whatever we would need them to do to follow up in the fall if something had happened with enrollment or we saw something, they are more than willing, which is why he put all encompassing for the study.
And he has our, I will say that they have already said that, if this does pass, that they'll use historic trend data that will provide them as well for the ADM.
Yes. And I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I'm not involved in that piece.
No, you're fine. I just
I'm just not involved. I don't have any idea what the contract says.
And part of the reason that Attorney Cross had encouraged that type of language is so that we could come back and say, hey, we've seen a dramatic.
And that's my concern about spring versus
and we could bring them back into the spring.
Yeah. I don't have a question, but I have some comments. I've been on the board 8 years and I've experienced to get to where we are now. My children were directly impacted by changes. I voted for changes. I understand the trade-offs that we've made to get here. And while I'm sure there's a better option, I think there's no perfect option. And so I guess I'm a little disappointed to see us go solicit a contract when I've not heard from central office what their expertise is. I mean, we have a lot of full offices back here, and a number of people are more than capable of doing this work. And with the board, and given my experience, I'm afraid. I mean, it's all about buying. I mean, I think the company's great, but I'd rather take our first blush at it, and then if we have trouble, if we need help, then you go get some help. But knowing that there's no perfect solution, knowing how we got here, why we're here, and what I think it can do for kids if we could ever just let the system run, I think this is a little premature, and I'm not super excited about this, and I can't support the contract. But I would charge, if it does not pass, I would charge administration to give the board what their thoughts are, and if it does pass, you will move forward. But I think that's where I'm at. So
Ms. Weber, I will agree wholeheartedly. And I think as I have tried to model, and you know, it stays around us on a daily basis with my inexperience in such processes of past. I know that I have a rather inexperienced central talented, very talented beyond their years when it comes to our chiefs of education with such processes. Um, what I will say is that the old notion, it's a Chinese proverb that I've always found that it's better to measure 1,000 times to make one cut compared to measuring once and making multiple cuts. And I think of what the experience that administrative assistants have brought in looking at similar demographic districts that have utilized their services and have been able to flourish as a result. Um, Preemptively, I think it would be in our best interest to move down this road. But to your point, yes, we have very capable and intelligent team members, along with board members that and address. However, at the same time, just as we have found with other areas within our central office, whether it be business operations, the expertise, the skill, the intentionality, it allows for us to move at a more efficient and effective pace. And I think that's the only caveat that I would humbly state would potentially be a challenge, because we also have a few other, as Attorney Cross says, balloons in the air that we're trying to right size, level set, and align along the way. And, but I do understand your concern and respect your position.
I guess some of my feelings are toward in alignment with Ron's. You know, I'm not doubting the fact that this would be a prudent agreement if it were to be entered into a partnership. However, I would have liked to have first seen, something from our central office, gleaning the community and those who have gone through alignment studies or realignment studies, you know, twice more in the past, twice in the past in the last 11 years, to learn from them, get that first in front of us, and then maybe go to an outside source, instead of just going to an outside source first and then to an extent neglecting the experience that we have at central office and those who have already done this before.
And I guess my opinion is that I like the idea that we're going to an outside respect opinions here, but I feel like sometimes you have your plate full, but you also have an area that you focus on. And when you hear a company that has experience with doing this and doesn't come in and with someone saying, oh, here's what I think we should do, but what you analyze it, you evaluate, you kind of tell us you're the experts here, and then we can so. But I did have a further question. How do you take student achievement data into your recommendations? I mean, because we know fiscally we have to be fiscal, so we have to think about transportation, all these things. But how is this going to improve our students and how they learn and what's best for them? Will you correlate that? Is there something that you analyze that as part of your recommendation, as well as what trends show or research shows that when things are aligned?
Well, we will certainly look at achievement data, but you are projecting out. So if you choose to make those changes, depending on the choices that you make, that could impact your achievement data down the road. So for example, if you see that through this reorganization that you are able to better use your personnel, or be able to start a new program that you weren't able to do in the past because you now have these cost savings, then you're going to see that improvement down the road. It's not going to give you a whole lot of information about other than this is your current achievement data. And by making these changes, you may see this down the road because you may be able to use your personnel differently. You may be able to start a new program differently. So those cost savings are going to allow you to make some decisions. And if I could speak to the board members for just a second, I completely understand what you're saying. I do. And I get it. I will say, however, that these folks are really, really busy. So, I mean, I just want to say that up front. They are super busy taking care of your kids. And so it sometimes seems, because I've heard my board say this as well, why can't the administrators do this? Could they? I trust that they could. They're very, very talented. But what has to come off their plate to do that? Because nothing has to come off of our plates, right? And I don't care if if you say, hey, we like the other two guys, we don't like Dr. Cadell, and somebody else replaces me, that's fine. I'm just saying that for this particular group of folks, that's a big lift when you say, okay, they got all this that they're doing to help kids, and now we're going to put this on top of that. And honestly, and they're not old. They don't have 115 years of experience. We've seen all kinds of configurations and ways to serve kids and so forth that, while talented, they've not necessarily seen. But even more so, even the biggest issue for me is that's a heavy lift. You're putting more on their plate. So what are you going to take off?
And Dr. Cole, if I can also add to and just also respond, again, we're all in agreement and in lockstep with the perspective. But when we think back to the National Institute for Excellence in Teaching, also known as NIET, and the results that we've gotten from contracting and consulting with that intentional instructional framework outfit. While yes, our student achievement data is not where we know it will be, but of the growth that we've seen because of the intentionality that such outfits as NIET and others have been able to provide us, we can argue those results. And in knowing what other corporations of like mind and similar demographic have experienced with administrative assistants and their continued flourishment in all things student achievement and operations based. Forgive us, but we believe that in short, if we can work with the Muncies, the Marians, and others within our academic and athletic conference, we can work in city with
I was just gonna say, I do think it's a good time to obviously do it. As a board, we've been talking about taking this debt issuance and the what ifs that we don't know about buildings, and do we want to put so much money into something if it's not going to work long term, and all of these questions. So I have high hopes of getting data, and I think everyone here probably has assumptions and what they want to do, and if it was a perfect world, and this could reinforce some of that or blow us all out of the water. I don't think that's the point. I think data is good, and obviously the last split and change we had was a necessity, and a lot of people didn't understand it. I didn't even live here at the time. I didn't understand it. But it's something that had to be done. So now we have the opportunity to really look at it and potentially the funds to sort of support and actually, if we have to make changes or shifts or move, then we can do that in a more logical fashion instead of trying to retrofit our kids into buildings that don't work. So Yeah, I'm excited for the outcome. But I understand what you're saying, Pete, too. It's, you know, it'll be done in the summer. We're already into the new school year. You know, what are the results? How can we implement some things or wait till the next year? So I know that those questions will come up and how do we solve them? So, but I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So,
And I appreciate the additional data and being able to have the data that is looking through an unbiased set of lenses, not lenses that are our neighbors or someone else's that's in our ear and just saying, just from our experience, these are bad practices. Now take a look at it yourself and how does that mesh with your community and what you have in place? Yes.
My comments earlier, I didn't want to make it sound like I was set in my ways that this is the only way we can do that. I'm not saying that whatsoever. I value the outside eyes. I value the input, and to your point, Kevin's already swamped with day-to-day activities. To add something else to that plate is of this nature would be all ask. So I'm not opposed. I mean, I share for Stevens and the Weber's sentiments exactly that I would love in a perfect world to get our own personnel to do all this, but just the day-to-day timelines, our time frame, I don't think there's that much time in the day for our staff to take that on. And I do value the outside eyes, and to your point, whatever you recommend is we don't have to accept it. I mean, it's what you think is you've seen work other places, and it's not just configuration on grades. What I like is the alignment to where you might be able to save and staff and things. We just reconfigure a couple class offerings or just the way things work there. So that's one thing I really like about the proposal. But,
Were there any other concerns Ron had on the contract?
No, Ron's concerns not having seen a contract like that was just that there was the capped amount that we would spend, and that the services were all inclusive.
I think finally, I'm sorry.
Are we ready for a motion?
I was going to say finally, just as a final caveat, I think of the work that you all had put in motion with Muncie Community Schools. When you think about Ball State University, which I know you all have 115 years of experience and we respect and we appreciate it, but even the world of higher academia there at Ball State, as they commandeered Muncie Community Schools, there were several things that they intentionally had done to see to it that the school system was reestablished from the foundation that could be built on. And one of the things they had done is intentionally brought administrative assistants in to lead that rebuild. And so I just would add that caveat. I think that this is it's been successful. Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify my statements in regards to having something done prior to any agreement that we may have, that we may enter. I would have preferred seeing that there would have been something done internally first, based upon the experience of those who have gone through this before, prior to entering something like this. My thought is not to not support an agreement with them. Just in my perfect world, it would have been to have something presented to us from our most recent experiences in the last, decade, and at a different timing of a study with this group to align with when the best student data would be available. March 15th through June, as opposed to, let's say, August through October. When you have students in seats, fresh students in seats at locations to give an understanding as to where they're trending at that time, as opposed to where they're tailing off at the end of the school year. So But it's not a perfect list. It's certainly not mine.
Move to approve action item 7.06, administrator assistance service contract agreement.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by member Zaleski and second by member Stoltz. Any more comments or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, yes or no vote, member Stoltz,
Yes.
member Zaleski.
Yep.
Member Weber.
No.
I'm a yes. Ms. Broughton,
Yes.
member Stevens,
Aye.
and Ms. Pickering.
Yes.
Okay. Vote passes 6-1.
Thank you, Dr. Phil. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being patient. That was a nice little meeting to sit there and get
Now,
you.
that's okay. And we appreciate your kind words about our format.
But now, you and I are gonna be talking. Like,
Yes, sir.
you are gonna be talking.
Teamwork makes the dream work. That's what we're talking about here in Richmond. We appreciate you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to working with you. Awesome.
Thank you.
Next up is 7.07 IU East Ivy Tech ICC weighted grade bond.
President Ward and trustees, Mr. Mark Bauer will be with us for the next two action items.
Dr. Rick, thank you, and trustees. This is just a cleanup to some language, and I just want to kind of give some context to how this currently works. So the Indiana College Core is a set of 30 credits that a student could attain in high school. And those 30 credits that they would get transferred to any Indiana public university. So we are continuing to try to offer more and more of these courses. Part of our MOU with IU East is that in order for our students to do that, they have to get 15 credits with IU. And then the other 15 credits that they get could be with a partner like Ivy Tech. Currently, the way our grade bump works, just because of language, is that if they took 15 of those courses through Ivy Tech, they would make the same grade bump for the same course that they would if they took it at IU East. So all this language is proposing is just specific to Indiana College Core, that any student who takes an Indiana College Core would receive the same grade bump. Not adding any courses to this, they decide it for us. We're not taking any away, it's just with that current group of 30 that we would treat an Ivy Tech English 1A class the same way that we would an IU East English 1A class. If that makes sense. It kind of is that simple.
I brought this up last year, and I think the discussion was Ivy Tech was strictly technical classes is what we're using at that point in time. So I think it was the discussion with the curriculum guide for the high school. I think if I remember the timing of it from last year.
So we met with both of those partners just recently about their offerings, and obviously we would like to encourage as many of our students as possible into those ICC courses. And what we don't want to have happen is if students can't fit it into their schedule, that they wouldn't go to a partner like Ivy Tech because they were afraid it would hurt their GPA or whatever, as opposed to IU East. So it would just be for those 30 classes that we would treat them the same.
So how would this affect a kid that's taking an Ivy Tech class this year? Would it still be graded 0.5, or they took it last year?
I would leave that up to this board.
Because I think as long as it's a Common Core class, it should be weighted the same. The state recognizes it exactly the same, if I understand correctly.
As does the university who receives it. So, for example, if a kid goes to Ball State receives the Ivy Tech English 1A and the IU East 1A. It's exactly the same. There is no difference in their eyes. So, but
I would be in favor of any student currently at the high school if they've taken these classes to change the weighting, but I don't know when the curriculum guide that was issued at the start of their high school career.
So we could make an amendment to that for next year's students enroll, but to your question about current and previous, I would leave that up to the board. I just am bringing this because as we are meeting with Ivy Tech and we're meeting with IU East, to try and get our teachers duly licensed so that we can offer more of these college core classes so that our students can graduate with a college core. What we don't want to do is create an inequity where students are running away from opportunities because they're afraid of what it may do to their GPA.
I mean, I guess I would like us to look at, do we still want weighted grades? We've had just seen a proliferation of, we had a bunch of Project Lead the Way classes a few years ago. At some point, it just is a mess. And if a kid has taken 90% of weighted grade classes, I don't even know what that means anymore. And so,
yeah, that's a fair statement.
I think that's kind of where I'm at. Is I'd like us to have and I don't know what the answer is, but I think the conversation at some point, and that would come from you guys, is what do weighted grades do for our kids?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a benefit? When we had a lot of discussion about, what drives the kids to take certain classes. Is that truly in their best interest? Is it the race to nowhere?
Yes.
And so I guess I'm a little hesitant to support this because, I don't think a high school, even though they're certified, is equivalent to a college class. And I know that's good for some of our kids. And so I'm really torn because.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm not debating the college versus our teacher. What I'm saying is currently our students who are receiving that instruction from our teacher who get the grade bump for IU East, we don't give that same grade bump if it was the same teacher doing the same class through Ivy Tech or a 2 year. That's my only thing, is that if it's the same course delivered in the same manner, that we would treat it the same. So I understand.
I think that's fair. Yeah, but I'm like, I didn't know that we were giving. I thought we had kids taking classes at Earlham that were not receiving any additional weight. So taking a true college class at a 4-point scale. I don't know if that's still the case. It was a few years ago.
Yeah, I've not heard that.
To me, that's a bigger issue. The kid's going to go to IU East and take a class and take a true college course, and they're getting a 4 or getting a pass-fail even. And so I don't know when we'll have those discussions. Maybe we won't. I think the proliferation of weighted grades and fairness, your point's well taken. I would question why does the IU East class get the weight?
Which I'm open to that conversation. I was just bringing it as it currently stands. We could take the same class in 2 different manners and we don't receive the same. Our students don't receive the same. So that's why I brought it to the
consistency.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
I move that we accept 7.07 in the action items.
Second.
Motion by member Stoltz, second by member Brunton. All those in favor, state by
I
saying
guess my
aye.
only question is, does that only apply to,
Sorry, I forgot.
when does that apply? So does that start for next year?
My current proposal would be yes, that it would start for next year because of where we are, but that's not a decision for me to make. I would say I would defer to the board.
We've had issues in the past, like with Project Lead the Way, where kids were rewarded before board approval, which I still don't know how that happened, with additional weight. And some kids weren't, and it changed the top 10. They shuffled, and the parents were very
So
upset.
currently, that's not
Yeah.
in the works. So we were talking about next year.
I would encourage you moving forward to have everything full and not go back.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, we were
I
thinking
would
24,
wanna see-
25.
Okay.
That's my proposal.
Yeah, I don't want I don't want them shooting
Because
from
it was because I can think of a specific kid, and why are you not? I mean, he was questioned is, what did you do your last semester? Did you just drop the ball? That's right. And that was nothing at all. They just changed weight, and these kids just let leapfrog.
I mean, even when we tweaked the valedictorian thing, when you did the incoming class.
Sure.
So there's options there to.
And not to get, we've only spoken to our partners in terms of moving forward. So if we, in fairness to them, we've not had discussions with them about what that would currently look like. Our conversations were about, hey, moving forward for our kids who take college core classes, what would this look like?
But I do think it's important to John's point that, to dig into the weighted, I've never quite understood it. And then it's like the spread just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And, I've got a freshman and I look at it and to me, I was like, am I only going to make him take these because it looks better? So just getting data on what that really is. And yeah.
Mr. Weber, to your point, one of the things as you referenced, we were not in our particular, our respective roles now then, but avoiding such challenges that you all experienced a few years back with trying to rearrange mid-year. So, nightmarish.
All right, any other comments or questions? All right, all those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All right. All of this again, yes or no? Member Stoltz,
Yes.
Member Zaleski,
Yes.
Member Weber. I'm a yes. Ms. Brady,
Yes.
Member Stevens,
Yes.
Member Pickering.
Yes.
Okay, vote passes 6-1. Next up is 7.0 CD overnight field trip.
Dr. Wright, thank you. This is just in advance. Our students advanced some of our students from the regional competition. They'll be going to the state competition in April to the Indianapolis State Fairgrounds, and that's an overnight trip. So I am bringing this to the board for approval for those students who move past regionals to compete in the state.
Mr. President, I move to approve 7.08, the CTE overnight field trip is presented.
Second.
All right. Any comments or questions?
Yeah.
Put you on the spot.
Okay.
Have you ever been to this?
To the state competition?
Yes.
I have not.
Gonna go this year.
Mr. Hensley extended the invitation
This
last
one
week.
is a near and dear to me.
Okay.
Just like our athletics have tournaments at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's right.
Our trades programs have similar tournaments in culinary arts. Welding to,
As long as I'm not asked to perform any of the tasks, I'm
our
open.
firefighting program does really well there. And so you've been to the state fairgrounds.
Correct.
So the whole facility that was just this past weekend, the Indianapolis Sports Travel Show is full
An event near and dear to my heart.
Yes. I looked to you when I said it.
We can also make a trip to that.
And so, but I'll tell you, it's impressive. It's unbelievable the amount of work and time that goes in from students and sponsors and community partners and Skills USA as an organization. It's a great. So,
Yeah.
any other comments or questions?
Pick out some show I like.
All right. Weber stepped out, so there are only 6 voting members on this vote. All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. All right, now we go to other discussion. And I will bring this up in light of events that occurred earlier. I will put it out there that I am resigning my board presidency at the conclusion of the meeting tonight. And I will be resigning from the board tomorrow with the county clerk. And then this board will have 30 days at one receipt from notification from the clerk that they've received my resignation to appoint a new member. So, Ms. Brunson, would you like to talk to, I'm sorry, we need to do nominations for offices first to simply be with the next board meeting. And then I'll turn it over to you to talk about things and the process for the So I will open the floor for nominations for the presidency.
President Walton, I would move to appoint member Kristen Brunton as president to succeed you in that same motion, a slate to include current secretary Nicole Stoltz as vice president and current member Pete Zaleski as secretary.
Second.
Okay.
I would move that the nominations be closed on these three names.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, this will also be 6 voting members on this. I will be abstaining from. So all those in favor of the motion to put Ms. Brunton as president, Nicole Stoltz to vice president, and Pete Zaleski to secretary, starting next board meeting, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those same sign. Motion passes.
Okay, I just checking.
Hold the board.
I had to give him the glare. All right. I don't get to do this ever again. So, now preview of upcoming meetings and events. Now I'll turn it over to Ms. Brunton, our incoming president, meeting to go over the timeline and details of the appointment process.
Okay, so starting tomorrow, we will be advertising on February 29th for a new school board member. And that not only advertising, I guess, publicly, but sharing with people that we know too, because we need someone who cares about kids and education.
And this is a
Know anyone?
district
That's
seat,
right.
not an at large, so I just want to clarify that.
This is not open to everyone in the community. It's only open to District 2, which is basically
Southeast,
east
south of 40.
of 27 and south of 40. So
And that map's available on the voter registration.
yeah, I think it's also available on our website. So we'll also be looking at Ms. Hazel Baker to maybe put out a statement or
When will that position expire? When was your term up?
I am up for, or this, sorry, District 2 is up for re-election this coming fall. So they would need to apply, was it March, or I'm sorry,
April
May?
21st through May 20th.
Yeah, I think you're right. Late April to early May.
No.
It's an early registration
Yes.
for all school board seats for the November election. They've just made that change.
It's May 21st through June 20th filing opens.
Okay.
Or it's open during that period.
But to clarify, that's for the filing for the November election. We need to appoint a new board member for.
They would be on the
the
next, they would be a member from the appointment. And Ms. Brunton will give us that date until
the end of the year.
The November election, when they would do, and well, they would serve until the end of the year, yes. But they would be up for re-election in November.
So we'll be advertising for this position from February 29th to March 13th. And we will be conducting interviews on March 20th at 4 p.m. And our new member, we plan to swear in or install that new member on March 21st at noon. So those dates kind of give the public an idea, if you're applying, that I think send out all the details. Probably also.
And just for clarification, by law, it has to be done within 30 days of the official. And that is why it seems like we've crunched a timeline of interviews and everything else now. Because if we, as a board, do not select a replacement for this seat, then it goes to judge. Yes.
And spring break is at the end of March.
Yeah, so, we're kind of losing a week there with spring break. We didn't want to do anything during spring break in case any of the potential candidates already have plans with family and kids and things of that nature. So. All right, anybody else?
Just to clarify, when you say advertise, that means accept applications up to what date again?
March 13th.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're.
Yes.
And that's an online form, or they can print.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
I do believe
you
that's
can
how
print it.
it will be.
You can.
You can print the form, Lauren, fill it out, you do submit it, email it back to probably Cindy over here. But that'll all be in the
Information will
posting.
be on the website.
Yes. You can handwrite on the form, you can type in the form, save it, print it out. Several options.
Easy. And right, just make sure those dates, please, are advertised for the meeting dates that we have.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
I do have something else to share. So I did too. I have pages of notes, but no, I actually attended a training for school board social media use and school use. So I'm just going to share briefly because I know we're after 8. But it was put on with by Church Hiddle and Angela. Some highlights about school board members and having social media sites that they're very powerful and they're very great to have for the public to have information. But there are 2 Supreme Court cases ongoing where private citizens kind of took over the school board member or the school's website with negative comments or negative, continuing to bring up issues. And then those school board members or schools deleted comments or removed patrons. And that is the question at large is, was it a violation of First Amendment rights? And so that's ongoing. But from this training, it was recommended that school board members and schools as well have social media sites that prevent any comments at all, because then it's a broad overview. Of course, it depends. I guess it depends was the training on whether your site is to inform or whether your site is for discussion, because clearly if the site is for discussion, then you want to leave comments open. But then keep in mind that you cannot block anyone from seeing any of those comments, and you cannot delete comments, even if they are untrue comments or, because you can't violate someone's rights. So what I got from it was that no comments for everyone is probably good, at least for me personally on my social media school board site, because it's for information purposes only, not a discussion. Discussions, I think, can have other purposes. So, but it was a good training. You can block everyone, you just can't be selective on who you block. There we go. So that was helpful. So I just want to share a little bit from that. Also, board member Pickering and I visited Charles a week ago. A week ago. So it was nice to meet with Mr. Jones and for us to tour the school and talk to some teachers and visit in some classrooms and see the exciting things that are going on there. I got to also visit Vail, where I'm part of a team there, a SWAT team from Every Child Can Read. So I do assessments periodically, the DIVOS assessment. So that was good to be in a kindergarten classroom. And then this last week, I also got to visit at STAR, where I work with a small group of high ability students every month. So it was really nice to get into the different schools the last couple of weeks and see students and see teachers, all the good things going on.
I just wanted to piggyback on Charles. Obviously my kids are there, so I love it. Had to talk to my 5-year-old who I heard down the hallway. Not in a good way. But Mr. Jones, I wish he was still here. I believe Charles has ordered a banner about being one of the top rated school in Whitewater Valley and nationally, and I just think that's great. He really takes pride in Charles, as do all of our principals, but and I just always am in awe of how much Charles changes, but still feels like home and the same. And so it's I spent so many years there, and just to get to walk back around and see the classrooms, and it's like that every time we visit a school. Though it's just great to see them, and they're so excited to see us and their little faces. But yeah.
And I just wanted to give a share out in regards to our board retreat. We had our board retreat this past Saturday. We met with Steve Horton from the Indiana School Board Association, who walked us through board development. And we went over our board self-evaluation results. We've done that several months ago, and we kind of we got to know each other better, and strengths, weaknesses, and how to work well together. And also, we've got our plaque over here saying, you know, we're a great board. And so he was kind of going through that's not exactly what it said. Anyway, so he was saying, well, these are some of the things that you can do to continue the exemplary board governance that you're doing. So, and I do want to say we had perfect attendance. So that trophy, if you could just bring it on over. Well played.
Would discount the price. Some of our members were a little tardy.
Yeah.
Few.
Anyway,
Some were not.
that's.
I'm your tardy.
Yeah, he was there.
I'm sorry. Sue.
Walton,
We're gonna get the kind scores out here in a second.
I would have banged the gavel.
All right.
I'm definitely playing it.
John slept here the night before, so what am I saying?
All right. Dr.
A preview of our upcoming meeting, item 9. We will meet again on March 13th, Wednesday at 5:30, right here in our boardroom to exercise civics and highlight the amazing things continuing to occur here in Richmond Community Schools. And at this time, I'd like to ask that Mrs. Bridget Hazelbaker to join us for adjournment and bell ringer. With that, as she is making her way, I would concur with Mrs. Stoltz that the administrative retreat was, I think, as if I echo what the sentiments that the majority of the board used, the best yet. And I cannot thank you all enough, as I did early on, for your fearless leadership, your guidance, and your commitment to all things. So thank you. Mrs. Hazelbaker.
The meeting next month, just clarify, there's only one meeting in March
Yes,
because of spring break,
Yes, sir.
and the one meeting is a business meeting.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And it'll be a public hearing number 2 for our debt issuance.
On March 13th.
Thank you, Secretary.
And we'll be celebrating our bowling team.
Mm-hmm.
So we're excited about that. I just wanted to highlight, we had 2 students that did very, very well in our science fair recently from Hibbard. 5th grader Nadia Bashkia won first place in Earth and Environmental Science at the Ball State University Department of Environment, Geology, and Natural Resources Award. And then Arabes Wilson won first place in Biomedical and Health Services. Both students will be heading to the Hoosier Science and Engineering Fair in Indianapolis on April 6th. So we want to congratulate them.
Thank you, Mrs.
Anything else? All right. Well,
And for the last time.
mixed emotions, and for the last time, we are adjourned.
You should have brought the bell out for you.
The siren. The siren.
Okay, get his picture down right away.